first point would be good afternoon. And this is not limited to IR only. You can use it for all the 4 papers, and particularly with respect to ethics, try to give more number of examples. Okay, in case of ethics, suppose you are putting some argument, try to substantiate that with an example. In theory portion, try to do it, use as many examples as possible, most preferably real life examples. Okay, so the first would be keep introduction and conclusion brief. किसी के पास राइटिंग पैड है? यू नीड राइटिंग पैड? पक्का? हैंड राइटिंग का ध्यान कर लो भाई, बी वेरी केयरफुल। चाहिए तो मैं लाकर दे सकता हूँ, ठीक है। सेकंड, if there are any keywords in the question, you can introduce by explaining that keyword. Third point, keep subheadings brief, because I have seen that you people go for this much long subheadings. Some of the following reasons for which there are challenges are. No need for all this. If question asks about challenges, just write challenges, underline it or keep it in a box and start writing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for subheadings, use the terms or words that are mentioned in the question. अगर क्वेश्चन में इश्यूज है और आप challenges लिख रहे हो, if question asks for issues and you are writing challenges, avoid that. Use the specific words that are mentioned in the question. If it is talking about positives and negatives, your subheading should be positives, negatives. अपने साइड से कुछ भी नया क्रिएट करने की जरूरत नहीं है। अगला, try to write your answers in point format. And give numbering to those points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. रोमन ABC कुछ नहीं, सीधा 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you have got examples, substantiate your points with examples. In the conclusion, do not bring any new dimension. Keep it optimistic and relevant to the question's demand. Most of you make this mistake. Most of you, I have gone through questions, answers. and you people do make this mistake. Try avoiding that. Not the first time, second time, third time, by fourth or fifth time, you will simply start avoiding those mistakes. And the point is that if you give long points or broader introductions, first it takes up your space, it takes up your time, and we have got limited space in our answer sheet, right? So that is why try to keep it brief, try to follow it. Okay, so we have to discuss India China. Huh? uh Quotation related? No, no. हाँ, तो उसी को आपको सम अप करना है ना. यू हैव टू सम अप व्हाट यू हैव रिटन. लाइक जैसे कि नेबरहुड के केस में इट दिस कैन बी अ टेम्पलेट, और इंडिया बांग्लादेश रिलेशन कैन बी अ Bangladesh relationship is key to success of India's neighborhood first policy. If you have given suggestion, simply write it with the keeping all these issues in mind, keeping or ensuring all these issues. Uh, India Bangladesh relations can prosper and leading to better cooperation in the nation, among the nations in South Asia. Keep it as simple as possible. Hmm. That is not a problem. वो हाँ देखिए, ये लिटरेचर का एग्जाम नहीं है. फ्लो का फोकस एसे में दे आर लुकिंग एट इट. हियर दे आर चेकिंग, टेस्टिंग योर नॉलेज, हाउ बेटर यू हैव अंडरस्टूड द क्वेश्चन एंड इज योर आंसर एज पर द डिमांड ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. ठीक है, जहां भी अगर आपके पास इश्यूज हैं, यू राइट क्वेश्चंस. अगर आईआर के नहीं भी हैं तो कोई भी, कुछ भी चलेगा. एक टेलीग्राम का ग्रुप, असल में हाँ, कुछ ऐसे लोग हैं जिनके बेकार बेकार सवाल होते हैं जो मेंस के लिए ज़्यादा रेलेवेंट नहीं होते हैं. तो मैंने वैसे सवालों के लिए एक टेलीग्राम का ग्रुप बना दिया है. आपके जितने बकवास सवाल हैं आप सारे डालिए, सारे का जवाब मिल जाएगा. ठीक है, क्योंकि ये मुझे दिस वाज द सिंपलेस्ट पाथ फॉर मी, जैसे कि अदरवाइज ज़्यादा डिले हो जाएगा यार. ठीक है ना, मैं निकाल लेता हूँ कौन सा वो टेलीग्राम ग्रुप है. ओह, IR फॉर्मेंस, IR और M तीनों कैपिटल हैं. सो अगर उस तरह के कुछ भी सवाल हैं, यू कैन पोस्ट इट हियर. या इनफैक्ट आपके अगर क्वेश्चंस भी हैं, आई मीन यू हैव रिटन सम आंसर्स. ओके, even if you have written some answers, you can send the soft copy. I'll evaluate it and I'll send it back. वो सारे का सारा लॉजिस्टिक्स इश्यूज ही खत्म. ये किसका आ रहा है? सभी को भी ज्वाइन करूं? मैं साइलेंट ही से करता हूँ, म्यूट कर दिया. Okay, so India-China relations. We know that roughly around the same time India and China got independence. It was the era of Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. In 1950, Jawaharlal Nehru, he had said that India and China, he talked about that McMahon line defining the boundary between India and China. This agreement in 1954, and up to 1959, China did not say a thing. In 1954, Panchashil, that was signed. In 1959, what happened? Around 1958, Tibet got restive because of China invaded Tibet to take control of it. Dalai Lama fled and he came to India. So naturally, China thought that India is trying to intervene in China's internal affairs. In 1959, Zhou Enlai, who was the then Prime Minister of China, he sent a letter to Pandit Nehru, and in that he talked about that specific map, a historical map, and there is a term called as green line. China has much interest with lines, okay. Whatever they are doing in 2020, they were doing in 2020, they were justifying it on that argument that during given by Mao Zedong that the boundary of China, the boundary between China and India is demarcated by a specific green line that passes through this fourth finger of that jetting into Pangong Tso. I think you people must be remembering when the conflict rose. So they are justifying on this argument, and this green line, that specific map was sent by Zhou Enlai to Nehru. India did not agree. Then this China, they have then 1962. This was statement of Mao that we have to teach India a lesson, and then this invasion took place. We were not at all ready because at that time our military expenditure was minimal. Pandit Nehru used to say that why do we need army? Why do we need military? UN is there, we have got all friendly neighbors. And then what happened with China? That was a reality shock that he got. And it is said that that was one of the reasons why he lost his life. And another issue was that even in the eastern sector, the Air Force had asked permission for taking action against Chinese invasion. They were stopped. So that was another factor why we couldn't do much. We were not prepared militarily, and that was among the key reasons why we did not develop infrastructure along the border, because the fear was that China will use that infrastructure and reach within India much swiftly. So that was the line of thinking. Then comes 1962. We all remember 1967. We generally used to forget. That was Chola incident, and at that time Sikkim was not part of India. There was a fight. We were fighting for, since Sikkim was our protectorate, we were protecting Sikkim. So there was a conflict and China got a bloody nose. Then comes 1975, the last time before 2020 when there was loss of life. In 1975, 4 of our patrols from Assam Rifles, and they were ambushed by China. Then comes 1986, Samdo Rongchu incident. At that time it was General K. Sundarji. And what had happened was that after this defeat of 1962, we had thought that we will leave, which plateau it is? No, not Doklam. Tawang. Since China had reached up to that specific line, we said that in case of war, what we will do, we will leave Tawang, and we will start protecting ourselves from way back. There are specific areas that I'll have to look into. But when K. Sundarji came, he said that no, that is not preferable. We will move forward and then we will defend ourselves. In 1986, it was found that China had developed some semi-permanent infrastructure. So K. Sundarji, he along with the then air chief, we had got some new choppers from Russia, the then USSR. He flew almost half a division those are too many soldiers, to Arunachal, and wherever the Chinese position was, almost they were all encircled. There was no loss of life, there was no conflict, but that was a pressurizing situation. After that, Indian Defense Minister went, Indian Prime Minister went, Rajiv Gandhi, his visit to China to normalize the relationship, and finally China withdrew around, I think, 1993 or 1995. From that particular region. So that is why presently in 2020 what happened, it is being linked to that specific incident. So it may stretch to such a long time. And another similarity is that in 2019 we changed the status of Ladakh, and in 1986 we had changed the status of Nepal to Arunachal Pradesh. So this is another linkage. Like here we changed the status of Ladakh, there we had changed the status of Nepal. Okay. So that is the linkage that is being, and this is the history. Then there were series of agreements, 1993, 1996, they are all mentioned here. And China has got a very interesting policy. It was that hide your power and bide your time. So that unless you are there, even Nehru knew Chinese ambitions, yet he preferred a different option. Come on, yeah, don't put such allegations. He was an idealist of some sort. In his thinking, he felt that China would not do that. So perhaps that was the reason. It's better not to put allegations. बिना मतलब का मामला पॉलिटिकल हो जाएगा, दिक्कत हो जाएगी, इसलिए ऐसी बातें नहीं बोलते. ठीक है. चाइना की पॉलिसी रही है हाइड योर पावर बाइड योर टाइम. Unless you are powerful enough, do not go for showing your power. So till 2013, China went for the same policy. It had very good relations with the Western world, with India. Then came Xi Jinping, and Xi Jinping felt that now China is on that stage. So he started all these projects, and as a result, China is in trouble, because till date China has not achieved that status, be it economically, be it militarily. Hide your power, bide your time. So these are some of the key agreements, these 4 agreements. So you do not need, unless specifically asked, you do not need to remember these agreements. You can just talk about 4 agreements. Last one is BDCA, Border Defense Cooperation Agreement 2013. And it has been said by India that all these agreements have been nullified because of Chinese action. And presently what China argues, China says that the border dispute is a legacy of history and it should be kept at appropriate place or proper place. Generally, you will hear this term, at its appropriate place. What China wants to say is that this is a legacy issue. We will solve this later on. Presently, what we should do is that let us continue with trade. But what India is saying that no, unless this is resolved, relationship is not going to be normal. China has put allegations on India, and India has said that no, it is because of China. And what are the factors for the incursion in 2020, that we will be discussing later on. ठीक है ना. आप लोग प्लीज इसे समझ लेना, because these are the most important topics for international relations. ठीक है ना. In 2003, they recognized sovereignty over our sovereignty over Sikkim, and in 2006, Nathula Pass was opened for trade. 2013 there was Depsang standoff, 2017 Doklam crisis, and 2020 Galwan. And yes, 2020 Galwan clash is also being linked to Doklam, because China had a loss of face in Doklam. Ultimately, China had to withdraw. So this is termed as another reason for ongoing crisis. There are multiple reasons, but no one can say with guarantee that this is the specific reason. Okay, so what can be the reasons? We will be discussing that. हाँ, देखिए वो हम बाद में, एक मिनट, वो सारे का सारा हमने नीचे में लिख रखा है क्या क्या, उसके अलावा जो भी एडिशनल है वी विल डिस्कस ऑल ऑफ दैट इन डिटेल लेटर ऑन. ओके, वो बस जो रास्ते में आ रहा था वो सब मैं बस बताता जा रहा था. एंड इनिशियली आई जस्ट गिव अ ब्रीफ अबाउट चाइना एंड इंडिया चाइना रिलेशन. ओके, सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ चाइना, वो तो हम सबको पता ही है. लार्जेस्ट नेबर विथ लॉन्गेस्ट अनरिजॉल्व्ड बॉर्डर्स, इंडिया लार्जेस्ट ट्रेड पार्टनर्स, increasing footprints in South Asia, adversarial neighborhood with a history of conflict, and most important ally and supporter of Pakistan, helping it at various fora including UNSC. इसमें तो कुछ नया है नहीं. And this is something new which you can always bring while discussing India-Russia relationship. Both Russia and China, they have declared no limits relationship. So this is a matter of concern for us, because Russia is a dependable partner of India. And if Russia goes for a no limits relationship with China, that means it can be trouble for us. Biggest trade partner of more than 50 countries, supply chains they are China linked. So naturally, in case of trade wars, China can weaponize them, as we have seen in case of Australia, even in case of Lithuania. So you can put examples: Australia, Lithuania, परमानेंट मेंबर ऑफ यूएनएससी, सेकंड लार्ज. यार ये सब तो, हाँ, एक ये इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म है रिविजनिस्ट पावर. When we talk about geopolitics, there are two types of powers. Status quoist power and revisionist power. Apart from PSI are optional. Anyone who can tell about them? Yes. China at the global level and Pakistan at the regional level. Status quoist means the power which wants to maintain status quo, means ongoing setup, like USA, or in the region India. And revisionist means one who wants to change it. So, and the point is that out of historically 16 times when there has been a shift in global power, 12 times it has resulted in war. So that is why if China is going for changing the existing order, there is always a probability of war. So this becomes another point of concern with respect to China. यार वो आपके काम का नहीं है, वो पॉलिटिकल साइंस वाले पढ़ते हैं. पढ़ा है? गुड. Misadventurism in Indo-Pacific, island building and militarization of South China Sea. Going forward, we will be discussing South China Sea in detail. I have got the map as well. वो तो आपने नोट्स में भी देख ही लिया होगा. बताइए. नहीं, वो उसका कुछ नहीं, वो सिर्फ इतना ही, नो लिमिट्स रिलेशनशिप। वो कौन सा ओलंपिक था ना, विंटर ओलंपिक, उससे पहले व्हेन पुतिन वेंट, एंड एट दैट टाइम ओनली दिस वाज साइंड इट ना। We do not argue such type of relationship. We have got strategic partnership, like special and privileged strategic partnership with Russia, special strategic and global partnership with Japan. Then we have got comprehensive strategic partnership. So these are some specific terminologies. Like between China and Pakistan, they call it Iron Brothers. हिमालय से ऊंचा, समुद्र से गहरा, शहद से मीठा। आई मीन, नहीं सीरियसली, ये है मैं, आई एम नॉट जोकिंग, दीज आर स्पेसिफिक टर्म्स that how strong their relationship is. We do not go for such. These are some specific just terminologies here, nothing more. So this is about trade, and we suffer a deficit of more than $50 billion. Biggest challenge in the bilateral trade, because China does not open its market for us. This is official FDI, but actually it's much more, and no one actually knows, because Chinese FDI will be separate. Some FDI from Hong Kong, Macau, some FDI or exports, they are rerouted through you can say like from Singapore. So when we try to put restrictions on imports from China, it was a study that there was a comparative increase in exports from Hong Kong. So that becomes quite challenging. In smartphone market, Xiaomi and Vivo, so roughly 75% is captured by China. So whenever anyone talks about limiting our trade relations with China, just imagine what can happen. All this digital India, education, mobile education, online education, it will just collapse. Because whatever, even assembly plants that you have got, all of them get their raw materials, their components from China only. So unless we have some alternative arrangement, alternate supply chains, we just cannot go for such a risky endeavor, because we are not Pakistan. Seriously, Pakistan has done that, right? कहाँ से चावल लेना है, अनाज लेना है, they do not know. चलो इंडिया के साथ ट्रेड बैन करते हैं. Key challenges with respect to trade: there are barriers, high trade deficit. It is the nature of relationship that is most challenging, because even if Chinese companies have opened their mobile phone plants in India, all they do is just assembly. So in terms of export, what is important is what value addition is being done. So if all the components are being brought from China and all that is being done in India is assembling it, value addition is very minimal. So from overall, because suppose you are exporting $1 billion, but your import with respect to that export is $850 million, so your net gain is just 150 million. So that is why what is important is what value addition is there, and that is why PLI scheme, we are trying to build some semiconductor plants. So the purpose is so that increased value addition can be there, diversification of supply chain can be there, dependence on China can be reduced. Fear of data security and Chinese spying, that we know it. Weaponization of trade, we have seen this in respect of Australia. And there is absence of reciprocity from China. We have opened our markets for Chinese products, but China has not opened its market. Substandard products and loss of manufacturers, and China's aggressive posturing at the borders. These are some of the key challenges and recent initiatives. ये तो आप सभी ने GS में you all must have read. Atmanirbhar Bharat, SCRI, banning of Chinese apps, prior government approvals needed for investment, and with respect to telecom equipments, only from trusted sources. So for this, you do not need to know anything new. You all must be knowing all this. But that same GS knowledge from paper 3 can be used here. What are the steps that we have taken to reduce our dependence from China? So you can bring in all the information from GS3. Okay. Then PLI scheme. Security cooperation. The fun fact is we have also got a military exercise with China. Purpose is counter-terrorism. Then there is agreement on security cooperation. And this portion also you will have to remember. Because when it says that there are challenges but there are avenues for cooperation, you can mention all these examples, that these are all avenues for cooperation with China. We have got membership of various platforms, WTO reforms and climate change reforms, energy security. We saw what happened in Glasgow, right? We and China, we did not coordinate, but we had a similar stance with respect to coal phase out. What was the term used? Phase out, phase down, yes. Rather than phase out, both nations agreed for phase down, phasing down of coal. Energy security, tackling terrorism, more fair and just global governance through World Bank and IMF reforms. Here also, recently there was a suggestion for IMF reform, but we did not side with China. We said that no, we do not want reform. We side with USA because that would have given more powers to China rather than India. So you have to go for that balancing. Common position. So double trade, climate change, global governance, energy security, terrorism and sustainable development. These are key areas where India and China can cooperate. You can mention about stabilizing Afghanistan. These are areas of divergence. We know about them. River water cooperation. China does not share information about the flow of Brahmaputra. Even whatever information we get, we have to pay for that on Brahmaputra. Yes, border dispute that we will be discussing, trade imbalance that we have already seen, river water cooperation, and future of Dalai Lama. This point is very important. You see, China has militarily captured Tibet, but it has not got that legitimacy from Tibetan people, right? Because Dalai Lama is both spiritual as well as political head in Tibet. China has tried to create some new positions, and what China is concerned is that, and Dalai Lama is presently living in India. You know that, right? So, and Dalai Lama has said that it may so happen that the next Dalai Lama may not take birth in Tibet, he may take birth outside Tibet. And one of the Dalai Lamas, he had taken birth in Tawang. So that is another reason why China is that much concerned about Tawang. So if Dalai Lama takes birth outside China or outside Tibet, and he gets the recognition from the Tibetan government, the Tibetan people, and across the globe, the lack of legitimacy with respect to Chinese government, that will continue. So that is why China wants that whosoever the next Dalai Lama is, it is China who should appoint that Dalai Lama. And since that Dalai Lama will be appointed by China, naturally he will accept the leadership of China. And once Dalai Lama accepts the leadership of China, naturally Tibetan people, they will accept it. What China is doing in Tibet is cultural genocide. It has been termed as cultural genocide. There are re-education camps. Small children, they are being sent away from their homes in special education camps from where every identity of Tibetan culture that will be removed, and they will be taught about the ways of Chinese, Han Chinese, who are the majority in China. And yeah, yes, this is the reality. Then even in case of Mongolia, Inner Mongolia, Mongolia is a separate nation. Even in case of Inner Mongolia, no other language apart from Mandarin. So there have been protests, I think last year or last to last year. हर जगह के साथ वही है. चाइना वही ट्राई कर रहा है, एक होमोजेनस. चाइना इज ट्राइंग टू क्रिएट अ होमोजेनस सोसाइटी. हाउ स्टेबलाइजेशन अगेंस्ट अफगानिस्तान. Okay. You see, China is also concerned about threats emanating from Afghanistan in the form of terrorism. We are also concerned about threats emanating from Afghanistan in the form of terrorism. So none of us want terrorism from Afghanistan. So naturally that provides a common ground for cooperation between India and China. Even if we look at the joint statements at SCO, it always refers to terrorism, tackling terrorism. मैं कहाँ पे था यार? हाँ. What China is trying to create is a homogeneous society, because all these cultures, there are different cultures. One is Xinjiang, then Inner Mongolia, then in Tibet. Naturally, all these cultures, they will not accept the dominance of China, the Communist Party. So unless there is common culture, it would be extremely difficult for China to hold together this vast region. Because once common people start protesting, you just cannot handle it, no matter how big military you get. And this will always raise questions about the legitimacy of Chinese government. The foreign powers, they can always instigate or motivate people to protest. So once China gets destabilized internally, naturally its economic growth will come down. Once economic growth has come down, there will be unemployment. Then naturally even the Chinese people, they will start protesting. Even more difficult for China to handle it. So due to all these factors, what China wants is that there should be uniformity, just one culture, one cultural identity. And that is the key difference between India and China. We also have diversity, but we gave due recognition to each and every diversity, be it language, be it religion, be it the way of life. So when people got recognition, they did not feel threatened. They said that no, I also have a say in this government. So that gives legitimacy. So the moment we start talking about uniformity in governance, there will always be threat of violence, because culture is something which is much closer. India as a nation state, that is just 75 years old. But a Tamilian speaking Tamil, a Keralite speaking Malayalam, that is centuries old. So it's but natural that they cannot leave it. So that is why three language policy. Someone says that no, I do not accept Hindi. Okay, do not accept it. इसलिए दिमाग में कभी नहीं लाने का कि सिर्फ अकेला पूरे देश में हिंदी ही चले, कभी नहीं. ठीक है, तो दलाई लामा, ऑल ऑफ यू गॉट इट कि दलाई लामा के बारे में व्हाई चाइना इज सो मच कंसर्न्ड एंड इवन इंडिया इज नॉट ओपनिंग इट्स कार्ड्स. हमारा काम वही है, दलाई लामा को बचा के रखो, कुछ होना नहीं चाहिए उन्हें. आई थिंक ही इज इन हिज लेट 80s, 87 और 88 years old. दलाई लामा का रीबर्थ होता है, रीइनकार्नेशन होता है. हाँ, बिकॉज इनिशियली उन्होंने क्या, हाँ वो एक गोल्डन अर्न एंड वगैरह वगैरह, क्योंकि वो वही कहते हैं ना कि चलिए ठीक है, नहीं ठीक है, उसके बारे में डिटेल में. तो बात वही है ना कि चाइना देखिए उसके साथ एक जस्ट 5 से 7 मिनट, उसके साथ क्या दिक्कत है ना कि जो पुराना जो गोल्डन, द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ गोल्डन अर्न, so whosoever was becoming Dalai Lama, that was getting acceptance from the then Chinese king. So that is why they argue how there can be a new Dalai Lama who has not been accepted by the Chinese king or the present head of China. So that is another set of argument. But ultimately it is Dalai Lama who would decide that where he will be incarnated. And even Dalai Lama, he has changed his stance. Recently he said that we do not want independence, we just want autonomy, we want protection of our culture. He has, because he is continuously trying to position himself in a way that Tibetan culture is also protected and there is no threat to common people. Otherwise China will wipe out whole Tibetan culture and that will be the biggest loss to humanity. ठीक है, साउथ चाइना सी, ठीक है, China's island building, it has got for militarization, we do not accept it, we want freedom of navigation and trade because that is a critical sea lane of communication through which our trade passes. ठीक है, इस तरह का लैंग्वेज यू पीपल कैन राइट. ठीक है ना, मैं बस बता दे रहा हूं. इट इज यू हु हैज टू कंप्लीट, बिकॉज इफ यू सिंपली राइट व्हाट आर द एरियाज ऑफ डाइवर्जेंस साउथ चाइना से, वैसा नहीं करने का. एटलीस्ट make half a statement that makes some sense. China's militarization of South China Sea and India opposes it. India calls for freedom of navigation, freedom of SLOC, sea lanes of communication. ठीक है, Indo-Pacific and Quad. There are differences over Indo-Pacific. China says that this is exclusive term, this is Cold War mentality. About Quad, the same set of arguments. Quad के बारे में क्या था, एशियन नाटो. Vision about order in Asia and global order. Globally we want multipolarity and even in Asia we want multipolarity. But China wants unipolar Asia and in larger run a unipolar global order. ठीक है, तो ये सारे के सारे एरियाज ऑफ डाइवर्जेंस एंड यू राइट लाइक दैट. बेल्ट एंड रोड इनिशिएटिव, ये वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग बाद में. सपोर्ट टू पाकिस्तान वर्सेस इंडिया यूएसए पार्टनरशिप. चाइना इज अपोज टू दिस एंड वी आर अपोज टू दिस एंड वी आर नॉट अपोज टू इट कि यू डू नॉट सपोर्ट चाइना but you do not support, you do not support Pakistan, but you do not support Pakistan on the issue of terrorism. We see what happened on listing Masood Azhar and presently there is another terrorist. China always puts it on technical hold says that we need some time for discussion. China's debt trap diplomacy, particularly in India's neighborhood, and India's membership to various platforms like UNSC and NSG. Because apart from China, all other nations they agree to India's membership of NSC, UNSC, and even NSG Nuclear Suppliers Group. ठीक है, ये सारे के सारे पॉइंट्स मैं आपको याद दिलवा दे रहा हूं सो दैट अगर इनमें से कहीं से भी क्वेश्चन आ जाता है तो यू शुड बी कंफर्टेबल इन हैंडलिंग इट. ठीक है. नाउ हियर कम्स बॉर्डर डिस्प्यूट. सेंट्रल सेक्टर, वेस्टर्न सेक्टर, ईस्टर्न सेक्टर. ठीक है. इसमें सबसे कम टेंशन है इस एरिया में, सेंट्रल सेक्टर में. यहाँ पे जो सिक्किम के साथ था 2003 वी सॉ दैट ऑन सिक्किम China accepted our sovereignty and Nathula Pass that was opened. And this is your eastern sector and this is your western sector. And this is Tawang. China does not, China terms this as Southern Tibet. And Aksai Chin is became very important at that point of time in 1950s because this region is Xinjiang and this is Tibet. Only motorable road crossed through this region, and so for connectivity, and I have written down the name of that particular road. It was G219. G219. Otherwise, these two areas were not connected and China was in a position to lose this area. So at that time, that's why China made that road. Indian government got the information. Nehru's forward policy without any military preparation. We went, then China came, and what happened? We all know it. And regarding McMahon line, China says that was a colonial policy and it is not legal. They do not recognize McMahon line. And this is some of the write-ups. They did suggest package solution 2 times, but then in 2003 they had given us maps, but then unilaterally they withdrew it. And since then there have been no negotiations over it. Package in 1960 and 1980-85, alignment in the eastern sector conforming to McMahon line, but India would have to concede Aksai Chin to China in the western sector, which meant they were ready to cede their claim on Arunachal if we were ready to leave our claim on Aksai Chin. But then in 1985, they changed it. They said that they would have to make some meaningful concessions in the eastern sector also. जो मेरा था वो तो मेरा है ही, जो आपका है वो भी मेरा है. चाइना का फंडा. And Tawang was brought up as indispensable to any boundary settlement. It means Tawang will go to China. And China has not been consistent about eastern sector. Sometimes it claims whole of Arunachal and other times it will claim only Tawang tract. So this is the reality of boundary dispute. So yes, now we will be discussing possible factors behind boundary dispute. Okay. India's infrastructure build up in the region. We know that at that time we had built this road DSDBO, and at Daulat Beg Oldie, this DBO, we have got a airstrip where these heavy C-130J Hercules, these heavy lifters, they can take off. And if this airstrip remains functional from very close to this particular airstrip crosses China-Pakistan economic corridor. So at any point of time, in case of conflict, India could attack that road. Moreover, as this DSDBO road was made, this was made a metal road, black pitch road. So reinforcements could be sent to this particular point swiftly. China was already building and upgrading the infrastructure on its own side. What is the reason for non-negotiation after 2003? That we'll have to ask from China. China has not said it. It unilaterally withdrew here. We have not. All the packages, they were from their side. And even this, what you are reading, this has been deciphered. This is not explicitly claimed. This is some scholar who said that this is what China meant. You see, Chinese are the people in negotiation, they are not very clear. In 1950, when Nehru called about McMahon Line as the boundary between India and China, China did not say a word. Presently also during negotiation, there are some 17 or 18 rounds of negotiation have taken place. China just does not say it. And the point is, what China takes benefit of is time, delay. India is a democracy. So suppose China is at the borders. So naturally there will be pressure on the government from common public, from opposition to resolve the issue. So if you are under pressure, on the Chinese government there is no pressure. So if you are under pressure, naturally you will be ready to cede something, that somehow I have to resolve it. So if you are ceding something, naturally China will be at advantage. So that is why fortunately this time, since the government, it has got majority and a decent control over the masses, it has got acceptance, government could withstand that pressure. So that is why if you are not willing to move back, we are also not willing to move back. Otherwise, what we would have done, please move back, they would have said, okay, we will come up to here, we would have agreed yes. So finally the issue has been resolved. So that is the issue with any democracy, because democracies have opposition parties, there are people, and there is always a popular pressure. In China there is nothing of that sort. Can it be Tibetan issue? Maybe. Nah, yaar. You see, and yes, another issue why India and China are not able to negotiate things is that both these nations think that going forward in the future they will be at a stronger footing to negotiate. China also thinks that it will be the preeminent power tomorrow. India also thinks that going forward I'll be a 10 or 15 trillion dollar economy, so I'll have a more bigger military might. So that is among the important reasons why the negotiation has not been, they have not been able to resolve. So possible factors behind ongoing border dispute, we saw our infrastructure building, then divert attention from internal discontent. At that time there was COVID, and this is a common mechanism, machination of any other nation. With Nepal also we have seen this, sorry, Pakistan also we have seen this. Even in case of USA, George Bush, there was a chance that he will lose war, attack karo Iraq pe, sorry, he will lose the elections, attack karo Iraq pe, and then he won the next term. So that is a common design of nations. Response to India's involvement in Doklam, I had already said regarding Doklam, because this was seen as a loss of face for China. Response against increasing India's proximity to West, and send a message to India and the region. And the region means, if India cannot protect itself from China, how can other smaller nations like ASEAN nations can expect India to protect them? And this was also a message to India that do not get too closer to USA. Otherwise, we are always there. And change in status of Ladakh, we have already discussed. No one knows, so that is why the term used is possible factors. You cannot claim which one it was. This could be any one or all of them. Sir, please explain DSDBO road. DSDBO, since you are online, look at the map. It is Darbuk, Shayok river you must be knowing. Shayok, Nubra, Hunza, Zaskar, all the, and Daulat Beg Oldie. Here we have got a airstrip, and this road connects and this road ends here. So this is that DSDBO road. So from Ladakh, you have got a airstrip at DBO. If that airstrip remains isolated, in case of war, it would have been advantageous for China to capture that airstrip. But if you have built a metal road so that swiftly military can be mobilized to that point of time, China cannot capture that easily. And from that particular airport, CPEC could be targeted. ठीक है, अब आते हैं साउथ चाइना सी पे. लेट्स कम टू साउथ चाइना सी. So you see, at that day we were discussing that South China Sea is mainly, someone was saying that South China Sea is mainly a conflict between China and specific South China Sea nations. Just look at this. Parcel islands, China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Spratly, Vietnam, Brunei, Philippines. All these three are ASEAN nations, right? So that is why there are territorial conflicts in South China Sea among ASEAN nations. Then Scarborough Shoal, Philippines, China, Taiwan. This, I got this map, and this map explains it quite decently. You can look at it. Red one is Chinese. This is 9 dash line, right? So in the west it is green line, and here it is 9 dash line. And there is quite a funny incident related to this 9 dash line. China started claiming that we have got a historical claim along this 9 dash line, which means whole of South China Sea. So in response, I think it was Indonesia, yeah, either defense minister or foreign minister, he said that when there was a volcanic explosion, the ashes from our explosion, it went and it got spread all over China. So can we explain whole of China to be ours? Seriously, this was an argument made by him. He just wanted to explain how, I mean, illogical and nonsensical China's claim is. At the Maritime Tribunal, the dispute went. This particular dispute between China and Philippines. Yes, it was partly. And the judgment was in Philippines' favor. China did not accept it. We do not accept it. That's the end of it. So let's just look at importance of South China Sea. US Geological Survey estimates that 290 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. So energy resources. Sir, please explain DSW 9 line also calling cow dung. I am not aware about it. Cow dung, I have not heard about it. Yeah. Please look it on the internet and let me know as well. Then it also accounts for 1/10 of entire annual global fish catch. So 10% of all global fisheries is from South China Sea. Strategic importance, link between Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean, Strait of Malacca. And 1/3 of global shipping passes through South China Sea. So if China gets control over the region, just imagine all the trade to Japan, I mean not all, around 30 to 50% trade to Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, it will have control. The smaller nations like Vietnam, Philippines. These are contesting claims that I have mentioned over here. And in case you get a question, you can try to make this map and you can try to just do not make these lines, mention about 9 line and you can mention about these specific disputes 1 or 2, not more, 1 or 2, Spartley and Scarborough. ठीक है, मैप बना देना. अरे थोड़ा मुश्किल है, कोई वहां आपको नो वन इज आस्किंग यू टू बी एमएफ हुसैन. ओके, यू कैन सिंपली जैसे इतना तो कर सकते हैं ना कि ठीक है ये वाला बना दिया और ये इतना बस बना, जस्ट इतना ही बनाना है एंड मेंशन इट. दिस इज चाइना, दिस इज वियतनाम, ये फिलीपाइंस हो गया, ये ब्रुनेई हो गया, बस. उसके बीच में जस्ट आपको पता ही है मोस्ट ऑफ द एरिया इज 9 लाइन. यू कैन ड्रॉ. नतीजा क्या होगा, 1.5 to 2 नंबर एक्स्ट्रा मिल सकते हैं. So in case there is a question on South China Sea, make the map. सर मैप में तो ऊपर नीचे हो जाता है, मतलब ना PSIR वाले मैम ने बताया था यार, इंटरनेट पे चेक कर लेना ना, वैसे मैं चेक करके कल बता दूंगा या फिर बीच में इन केस आई गेट टाइम आई लुक इनटू इट. ऊपर नीचे हो जाता है मतलब कंट्रीज ऊपर नीचे कैसे होंगे यार. तुम श्रीलंका को ऊपर थोड़े, पाकिस्तान की जगह श्रीलंका कैसे कोई दिखा सकता है. आई मीन हाउ इज दिस पॉसिबल, ऊपर नीचे होगा. इंडोनेशिया नीचे साउथ में ही रहेगा ना, वियतनाम ऊपर रहेगा. सर गैप आ जाता है, आई मीन यार दैट डज नॉट मैटर. नो वन इज आस्किंग यू कि ठीक है इतना डिग्री लैटिट्यूड, इतना डिग्री लॉन्गिट्यूड, यू मेक द मैप. You just have to make a very general representation just to explain it, that you know. Even in case of map of India, No one asks to make a proper map. Just keep it very simple. Okay, something like this. Yeah, if you are talking about South India, you can just draw this and you can mention whatever resources you are talking about. No one is asking you to make a proper map because they also know it and you will be making it with pen. और समय नहीं बर्बाद करना इस चक्कर में, दैट इज ऑल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट. डू नॉट वेस्ट योर टाइम. टाइम है, बना दो. अगर लास्ट में 10 मिनट में 2 क्वेश्चन करने हैं, यू कैन लिव इट. Can we use map in every question? For example, dispute between USA and China, so you will make China this side and USA that side. Okay sir, proper नहीं बनता roughly. बिल्कुल, definitely make it roughly only. Make a rough map. And presently, as you will be practicing it, practice it now. Because if you think I'll start making in the exam, it will take a lot of time. You will also spoil a lot of space. So start practicing from now onwards, and not in every exam. Sorry, not in every question. जहां पे possible है, suppose there is talk about some specific geography like India China border dispute, there you can make a map. South China Sea, there you can make a map. अब ऐसा नहीं है, ठीक है. Okay, about this Ukraine crisis, there you can make a map. So showing about Eastern Ukraine, Donbas region, there you can make a map. Not everywhere. और हर क्वेश्चन में मैप बनाने का समय कैसे मिलेगा? Then we come to Belt and Road Initiative. We have discussed it briefly in the last class, right? Global Infrastructure Development Strategy 2013, invest in nearly 17 countries, connect Asia with Africa and Europe via land and maritime network. And Belt and Road में Belt is for land component and road is for maritime component. This is the map. Silk Road Economic Belt and Maritime Silk Road Initiative. These are some factual information. By 2016, more than 100 countries expressed support for willingness. Okay, so in South Asia, which are the nations that have supported BRI initiative? बांग्लादेश ने किया है, right? Except for India and Bhutan, all. So if question relates to India, neighborhood and China, you can mention it. BRI, it will be because only India and Bhutan are 2 countries that have not supported it. 46 agreements by end of 2021, 142 countries have signed to work under the framework of Belt and Road Initiative. $200 billion and expected to reach 1.3 trillion by 2027, but estimates vary. So first let us look at the significance, then we will look at India's criticism. Okay, so what can be the significance? चलिए सोचते हैं, डिस्कस करते हैं सिग्निफिकेंस बेल्ट एंड रोड इनिशिएटिव का, बिकॉज वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस दिस टॉपिक यस्टरडे. क्या क्या सिग्निफिकेंस है, यू टेल इट. राइट. या कनेक्टिविटी आपने जो भी बोला ना, ये एक है इकोनॉमिक डायमेंशन. अब दूसरे डायमेंशन पे चलते हैं. यस, चाइना का डिप्लोमेटिक क्लाउड बढ़ेगा. अगला क्या है, जो फंडिंग, ग्लोबल फंडिंग गैप है, बिकॉज वर्ल्ड बैंक, IMF, they have not been able to fulfill this gap. There is a gap of more than $1 trillion. ठीक है, तो वो जो फंडिंग गैप है ग्लोबली, दैट गैप कैन बी फुलफिल. डिप्लोमेटिक क्लाउट है, ये सारी 3-4 चीजें और देखते हैं. और हमने क्या कुछ लिख रखा उससे ज्यादा क्या? You can mention, you can remember this data, $800 billion as per the report of ADB, Asian Development Bank. Bridge the financial gap and supplement institutions like World Bank and Asian Development Bank. So ये आप टर्म देख लीजिए, सप्लीमेंट, बिकॉज यहाँ पे हम कन्फ्रंटेशन, वी आर नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट क्रिएटिंग अल्टरनेट इंस्टीट्यूशंस, दैट कैन बी अ क्रिटिसिज्म. But when we are talking about positives, its importance, terms are important. So it can supplement existing financial institutions, global financial institutions. New growth poles, these are important words. Okay, क्योंकि अगर if there is any area where there is investment, naturally growth will start, there will be demand in that particular region. So new growth poles, and that will spur investment. You can write about investment, job creation and economic development. Supply chain management, connectivity, regional growth, yes. Then support rapid development of developing nations and LDCs. And help in swifter global recovery. At that time it was 2008 financial crisis. Presently it is COVID crisis. So it can help in swifter recovery and create demand. And it can help in reducing Western dominance on global finance. So it can help in ensuring more equitable global governance. More equitable global governance. तो लेकिन वो, हाँ, लेकिन वो चाइना को मिलेगा ना. तो हाँ, BRI से डेफिनेटली, दैट इज अ फैक्ट. वो उसका पर्पस भी है, मेन पर्पस, हिडन पर्पस वही है, दैट इज द हिडन पर्पस टू गेट. सपोज द क्वेश्चन इज अबाउट व्हाई China has launched BRI. So there you can write about. Presently the significance is about general significance, importance for all other nations. Okay. Then these are some of the challenges. We have already discussed the challenges. There is a lack of transparency, and there are little, the project has little concern for environmental and labor norms. Lacks involvement of civil society in decision making. It has led to unsustainable debt burden. And आपने जो भी बोला ना, वो यहाँ पे we have mentioned it as a challenge, as a vehicle for China's geopolitical dominance. ठीक है. And alternative initiatives by other nations, which we have discussed नीचे में. Up, you can also write about there are allegations of corruption. ये जो हमने, हाँ, you can write about it. Maldives, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, जस्ट थिंक आपके पास सारा इंफॉर्मेशन है, यू हैव गॉट ऑल द इंफॉर्मेशन, ऑल यू नीड इज टू याद करने को कि ठीक है क्या क्या है। आपको आपको पता है चाइना का ये कितना है, रिजर्व्स कितने हैं? $4 ट्रिलियन। हाँ, आपका कोई सवाल था? यस, अनसस्टेनेबल डेट्स थ्रू प्रोजेक्ट्स ऑफ BRI, या फिर हाँ हाँ, अगर सपोज अ क्वेश्चन इज इम्पैक्ट ऑफ BRI ऑन साउथ एशिया, दिस इज अ वेरी प्रोमिनेंट नेगेटिव पॉइंट। वही, या दैट इज व्हाट हैज बीन मेंशन्ड, देयर इज लैक ऑफ ट्रांसपेरेंसी, लैक ऑफ ट्रांसपेरेंसी इज द फर्स्ट पॉइंट। The projects are not at all transparent, whether it's funding, terms of funding, there is lack of transparency. Next, we were the first ones to criticize it. A proper press conference was there, and India, the MES spokesperson, he had read specific points that why we oppose BRI. The very first point, it violates territorial integrity, POK. काराकोरम हाईवे कहाँ जा रहे हो आप यार? काराकोरम हमारा इलाका है, काराकोरम हाईवे हमारे पास है, वी हैव बिल्ड इट यार। वो खारदुंगला एंड ऑल, वो काराकोरम हाईवे का ही तो पार्ट है ना। नहीं नहीं, सीपेक वो इन्होंने अपना बना रखा है, बट यू राइट इट सीपेक बिकॉज अननेसेसरली इफ यू गो फॉर राइटिंग काराकोरम हाईवे, एग्जामिनर को कंफ्यूजन होगा यार ये तो अपना एरिया है। तो whenever you give reference to it, you give reference to CPC, ठीक है। It lacks transparency and accountability, अनसस्टेनेबल डेट, वही जो नीचे वाले क्रिटिसिजम्स हैं वो सारे के सारे हमने पहले ही बता दिए थे, वी हैड सेड दिस इन द वेरी बिगिनिंग। सर जो हमारा चाइना में डिप्लोमेट है वो इंडिया के फेवर में काम क्यों नहीं कर पा रहा इफेक्टिवली जैसे यूएस में कर लेते हैं? Excuse me, you see the point is, it is being said that I should ask you people not to ask such questions. Students from within the class, they are saying so because such questions will not be asked either in mains or in the interview. Okay, and moreover the question, it is very demeaning to whatever diplomat who is working there. They are working very effectively. This is a very demeaning question. You are not a politician and you must not use language like this. Why will they not work in our favor? They are working in our favor. This is a very demeaning question. And यहाँ पे बैलेंस्ड नहीं, आप इसे अनबैलेंस्ड कर देना, ठीक है ना, यू मेक इट अनबैलेंस्ड। सो दीज आर सम ऑफ द इनिशिएटिव्स, लेकिन इनमें से किसी इनिशिएटिव का कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ है, किसी इनिशिएटिव का कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ है, और कई सारे में सीधी फंडिंग की कमी है। ये डिटेल्स आर रिटन देयर, दिस ब्लू डॉट नेटवर्क, दिस इज जस्ट फॉर सर्टिफिकेशन कि वी विल सर्टिफाई प्रोजेक्ट्स। यहां देशों को पैसा चाहिए, Nation wants money, they want investment. They are ready to compromise because their main focus is on development. लेकिन उनका क्या, we will certify that they are compliant with international standards, laws and regulations. Blue Dot Network will certify infrastructure projects. ये अपने ही धुन में रहते हैं. Then this Build Act, this is something, because it has created a new infrastructure development, international develop IDFC, Finance Corporation. This is an act passed by the US Congress. Facilitate participation of private sector, because these nations do not have that much fund, sovereign funds, that is not there. What is Blue Dot Network? Yeah, it is written, that is why all I will do is just read it out. It is mainly a certification framework that is being created, that whatever new projects will be, we will certify it, so that nation can be sure of the projects to be environmentally, financially viable, following all the labor laws, all the norms. And these nations, US, Australia and Japan, they are working with OECD to develop a methodology for certification of infrastructure projects. Then it is Build Act. Japan Asia Africa Growth Corridor. Japan had said that we will give around $200 billion, but till date no project has been sanctioned under this. So why would African nations trust India and Japan? Then this one is comparatively a recent one. Global Gateway Plan, mobilize 300 billion by 2027 in public and private infrastructure around the globe. The problem is that China has got funds, because it was mainly a export based economy, so it could build sovereign fund. All these nations, they do not have that much funds. Moreover, the economy here is liberal, so ultimately it is the private sector who would be investing. The government has got very little money to invest. The government will have to focus on social sector, defense and other sectors. So it is mainly the private sector which invests. In India, private sector actually is an extended arm of the government in China, right? So that is why even if the Chinese companies, private companies, when they invest, ultimately it is the Chinese government who is investing, because those companies are backed by the Chinese government. Here, all these private corporations, they will ultimately look for viability of the projects. They will look at how much profit they can gain rather than the strategic importance. So naturally, there will be challenge for these nations to invest to the scale up to which China is investing. And these are some of the points about in South Asia and Indian Ocean region. With respect to China, if the question is about in South Asia or Indian Ocean region, or competition between India and China, then these points you can always mention. China has become biggest trade partner for all South Asian nations except Afghanistan, Nepal and Bhutan. In Nepal, it has become the biggest investor. And you can mention about India as well. Through Belt and Road Initiative, it has tried to acquire strategic assets like Hambantota, Gwadar, etc. Key defense supplier to Pakistan, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. These points you can mention in those specific questions where there is a comparison between China and India, or how China is becoming a dominant player and what India should do, or recent Chinese initiatives in the region and how it compromises India's interests. Okay, so for all those questions you can mention these points. Chinese Navy has increased its movement in Indian Ocean region, have been seen docking at, oh 5 नहीं, ये 5 जो है ना ये इसी का कंटिन्यूएशन है, डॉकिंग एट श्रीलंका एंड पाकिस्तानी पोर्ट्स, ठीक है, ये 5 नहीं है, दिस इज कंटिन्यूएशन ऑफ पॉइंट नंबर 4. दिस चैलेंजेस इंडियाज विजन ऑफ अ नेट सिक्योरिटी प्रोवाइडर इन द इंडियन ओशन रीजन. सो आप अल्टीमेटली देखिए सेम टर्म्स यूज हो रहे हैं, ठीक है ना, तो इन सारे टर्म्स को दिमाग में रखना है. अनसस्टेनेबल डेट, ongoing economic crisis, श्रीलंका, पाकिस्तान एंड नेपाल. और अगला इंपॉर्टेंट क्या है, ये तो हमने पहले भी पढ़ रखा है, दिल्ली रीजनल सिक्योरिटी डायलॉग, चाइना एंड पाकिस्तान they were absent, so they do not want India's involvement in stabilizing Afghanistan, and there was a meeting on Afghanistan in China, but China did not invite India. और ये तो बिल्कुल रिसेंट वाला है, अब्दुल रहमान मक्की, चाइना ने फिर से रोक दिया है. सो इन केस देयर इज अ क्वेश्चन अबाउट कोऑपरेशन ऑन टेररिज्म और डिफरेंसेस बिटवीन इंडिया एंड चाइना, you can mention this one. Initially they restricted listing of Masood Azhar, and now they have come back to Abdul Rahman Makki, and they have yet again put technical hold. ठीक है, अब आते हैं कुछ क्वेश्चन. एक मिनट, एक्सेप्ट फॉर क्वेश्चन नंबर 3, जो 1 और 2 हैं ये इंडिया रशिया पढ़ने के बाद ही डिस्कस करें, क्योंकि रशिया इज इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन. ओके, देन कैन यू पीपल राइट क्वेश्चन नंबर 3. पहले सवाल देख लीजिए. ओके, ठीक है, नहीं ठीक ठीक, हम डिस्कस करेंगे, इस क्वेश्चन को देखिए, ठीक है ना. चलो अच्छा हुआ आपने याद दिला दिया, वी विल डिस्कस. नोट्स में नहीं थे क्या, वे फॉरवर्ड नहीं है, नहीं है शायद, नहीं है, कोई बात नहीं है, पढ़ लेंगे, इसमें क्या दिक्कत है. कैन यू पीपल हैंडल दिस क्वेश्चन. कोशिश कीजिए, ट्राई आउट. या फिर रहने दीजिए, आप इसे घर से लिख कर लाना, क्योंकि अभी अगर आप लिखोगे इट विल टेक टाइम, और उसके बाद एक्सप्लेन करने में टाइम भी ज़्यादा जाएगा. ये वैसे PSIR वालों के लिए भी ये सवाल मुश्किल है. दिस इज नॉट इजी क्वेश्चन, लेट मी से दिस सिंपली, ये सवाल मुश्किल है. तो आप लोग इसे घर पे ट्राई करना, पहले इंडिया रशिया देख लेते हैं. बोली पूछिए. यस, ओके. So the question is that India's increasing trade with China is imposing multi-dimensional threat to India. Explain or discuss. ठीक है, बताओ पहले कोई और, अल्टीमेटली तो मुझे बताना ही है। हम्म, आप इस तरह से, आपका एक पॉइंट रहेगा एपीआईज का, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट विल बी विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू टेलीकॉम इक्विपमेंट्स, देन चिप्स, सेमीकंडक्टर चिप्स। आप इन सब को एक ही पॉइंट में डालो। हाँ, वही जो, हाँ, वेपनाइज, सिंस बिकॉज ऑफ डिपेंडेंस, India's increasing dependence on key areas like APIs, telecom equipments can be weaponized by China and this can cause economic turbulence या फिर economic uncertainties। वो हुआ पॉइंट, एक पॉइंट, ठीक है। हाँ तो लेकिन एक मिनट, एक मिनट, क्वेश्चन आप देखिए, क्वेश्चन ये है कि इट इज पोजिंग मल्टीपल सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट्स, so you'll have to think the question in this respect। So first one is, first one is economic dependence and weaponization। Second one, nice। और solution में you can mention about trusted sources, the decision that has been taken by the government to procure equipments mainly only from the trusted sources। वो इकोनॉम मतलब इन क्वेश्चन का, you see first part of question is that increasing trade, okay, और business economic engagements, not साइबर सिक्योरिटी। देखिए आपको पास एक्सेप्टेड, पॉइंट इज दैट आपको हुआवे को पता है, हुआवे वाई यूएसए कनाडा है बैंड हुआवे, देयर इज फियर ऑफ स्पाइंग, backdoor information transfer। If we have got telecom equipments from there and if there are some bots, they can always listen to whatever conversation is going on। There is a fear of spying। आप समझ रहे हैं? यस, यू कैन ब्रिंग इन दिस, नहीं ये आ सकता है, ये आ सकता है, यू कैन ब्रिंग इन दिस पॉइंट दैट इट इज इनडायरेक्ट फाइनेंसिंग चाइना इन बिल्डिंग इट्स ऑन मिलिट्री कैपेबिलिटी। डेफिनेटली यू कैन ब्रिंग इन दिस पॉइंट, ओके। फोर्थ वन, कैन वी टॉक अबाउट, क्वेश्चन इज अबाउट अस, क्वेश्चन इज नॉट रिलेटेड टू साउथ एशिया, ओके। सो क्वेश्चन, वैसे तो अभी क्वेश्चन लिखा हुआ नहीं है तो ये भी गलती हो सकती है, बट क्वेश्चन को आप लोग हमेशा पढ़िए, ठीक है ना। manufactured good import and India provide raw material. Devaluation of rupees never favorable. यार अगर मेरे पास टाइम होता मैं इस पर पूरे डिटेल में जाता. You should sometimes you should see the value of yen in global market. Japan has devalued its currency so that it could become a export based economy. So it's not that devaluation is always bad. फिर fourth you can talk about uncertainties in the financial markets because of Chinese FPIs, not FDIs but FPI. बात है हमने स्ट्रेटेजिक सेक्टर के लिए काफी सारे we have put in restrictions, so that is why I am not mentioning FDIs. ठीक है, हो गया आपका. वैसे भी दिस और यार पॉइंट इज कि एक तो आपने सेक्टर लिमिट कर दिया है ना, इकोनॉमिक डिपेंडेंस, तो जितने हमारे पास होंगे हम उतने ही करेंगे ना. अगर ये इफ दिस इज अ 10 नंबर क्वेश्चन देयर विल बी अनदर पार्ट ऑफ दिस क्वेश्चन, व्हाट स्टेप इंडिया हैज टेकन. हाँ, बिकॉज दे आर ऑल्सो अवेयर ऑफ द कंटेंट. और या फिर अगर डिस्कस है ना तो इन द सेकंड पार्ट यू कैन ऑलवेज डिस्कस इंडिया हैज टेकन स्टेप्स to tackle these threats. 1 2 3 4 5 the one we have discussed, right? You think about it. एक मिनट, इनका कोई सवाल है. एक मिनट रुक जाइए, मुझे देख लेने. Sir, India-China relation is good for Asian country. It leads to economic, cultural, political, military stability in the region and bomb in the trade. BWM B वहां से हटा दीजिएगा. आगे क्या कह रही है? गुरप्रीत कौर है, मतलब शायद लड़की ही होंगी. Investment in strategic location Indo-Pacific like Humboldt, China goes for non-tariff barrier. Point is multiple security threats. You have to pay attention to the question, its keywords. ठीक है ना. हाँ, वे फॉरवर्ड की ये बात कर रहे थे, तो हाँ वे फॉरवर्ड डिस्कस करना काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है. तो वो ग्लोबल मार्केट को डिस्टेबलाइज कर रहा है ना. तो देखिए इस तरह से, तो अगर वो यूएसए के साथ भी उसका टेंशन, किसी का कहीं से भी कुछ भी होता है, दैट विल हैव इम्पैक्ट ऑन अस, लेकिन इतना ज्यादा नहीं. क्वेश्चन आप ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड द मैंडेट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. ठीक है, वो बहुत ही इनडायरेक्ट हो जाएगा. हाँ पूछिए. कैसे? ऐसा होता नहीं है. और ऊपर देखिए इंपॉर्टेंट इसकी स्ट्रेटेजिक सेक्टर्स के हैं क्या, और असल में इट्स नॉट 80 to 90%. डेटा 2020 तक का था. आउट ऑफ 30 यूनिकॉर्न्स 18 वर फंडेड बाय चाइना. वो फॉर द सेक ऑफ सेइंग वी टॉक इट 80% 90%, इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट. एंड इवन इफ चाइनीज कंपनीज हैव स्टेक्स, it is they do not have major that much stakes. In some companies definitely they do have, but important is about strategic sectors, and we have ensured that in those strategic sectors there is restriction on Chinese investments. ठीक है. और अगर पॉइंट नहीं आ रहा है दिमाग में तो लिख दो. अगर पॉइंट दिमाग में you are not unable to think it, just write all these points, no issues, because ultimately you have to write something. क्या पता एग्जामिनर को कुछ लग ही जाए, तो खाली छोड़ने से always better just write something. यहाँ पे since we are discussing and I am able to give an opinion, that is why I am saying whether you should write it or not write it. There simply write it. सोचने को कुछ नहीं आ रहा है, जो सामने आ रहा है जस्ट राइट, ठीक है। व्हाट शुड बी द वे फॉरवर्ड? ये लास्ट में रहेगा। हाँ, एक इकोनॉमिक एस्पेक्ट में सप्लाई चेन का डाइवर्सिफिकेशन, ठीक है। ये हाँ, व्हाट शुड बी वे फॉरवर्ड इन इंडिया चाइना रिलेशंस। यू सी, जब हम वे फॉरवर्ड की बात कर रहे हैं ना, तो वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस टू एस्पेक्ट्स। द फर्स्ट वन इज हेजिंग, ओके, हेजिंग आप लोग समझ रहे हो ना, एंड सेकंड वन इज कोऑपरेटिंग, ठीक है ना। इट्स नॉट कि हमें सिर्फ चाइना, सिंस चाइना इज द सेकंड बिगेस्ट इकोनॉमी, so it's and our neighbor, so it's but natural that we should cooperate with it, but at that same time it is also a threat for us, so we should also go for hedging, ठीक है। तो जो भी आपके सजेशंस होंगे ना, योर सजेशंस और वे फॉरवर्ड, यू हैव टू पुट इन both points in mind, just like when he talked about diversification of supply chains, this is a hedging, and cooperating it can be engaging with China for getting greater market access. ठीक है ना। सो हमारे जो भी, अब हेजिंग में हम क्या करेंगे, डीपनिंग एंगेजमेंट विथ अदर पार्टनर्स, जैसे कि यूएसए, जापान, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, यू कैन मेंशन अबाउट स्ट्रेंथनिंग क्वाड, देखिए वहां पे आप इस तरह से लिख सकते हैं ना, वे इसके लिए वी नीड बोथ हेजिंग एज वेल एज कोऑपरेटिंग, तो हेजिंग के लिए 1 2 3, कोऑपरेटिंग के लिए 1 2 3, हाँ बिल्कुल, बिकॉज हमें नेशन को देखना पड़ेगा। जैसे इन केस ऑफ पाकिस्तान व्हाट वी वर सेइंग, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान के साथ वी डू नॉट हैव दैट मच इकोनॉमिक एंगेजमेंट, so we need to be very much cautious, we should engage but cautiously, we should look for some real results on the ground, वो वही था ना। but since China is such a big economy, we cannot decouple ourselves from China, ये दिमाग में हमेशा रखिएगा, we do not have to decouple ourselves from China, rather than that we have to go for hedging, building domestic capabilities, हाँ ये वो कोऑपरेटिंग में आएगा। सिक्योरिटी कोऑपरेशन, यहाँ पे हम लिख, हियर वी विल राइट द क्वेश्चन इज रिगार्डिंग सिक्योरिटी कोऑपरेशन, एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी, यस, एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी, क्लाइमेट चेंज, ऑल दोज एरियाज ऑफ कोऑपरेशन which can have spillover effects, ठीक है। जिनके साथ for whichever with whichever nation we have got tense relationship, always talk about cooperation which can have spillover effect, okay। energy security like import of social solar panels, that will create dependency here. Here we need to diversify because we have got very huge dependency on China and we do not want that. So there we need for building domestic capabilities or diversifying our import markets. Resolve tariff barrier issue to strengthen supply chain. Yes, yep. Resolve tariff barrier issues for balancing trade. ना 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 ना, ये इन जनरल है. वो इन्होंने क्वेश्चन, द क्वेश्चन वाज कि ठीक है, वी हैव डिस्कस्ड इंडिया एंड चाइना, व्हाट शुड बी द वे फॉरवर्ड इन इंडिया चाइना रिलेशनशिप. So whatever question comes, you can always pick 2 or 3 or 4 points from here and simply write it down there. बॉर्डर सेटलमेंट के लिए ना, उससे ज्यादा बेटर आप इस तरह से लिखे बॉर्डर कोऑपरेशन के लिए, बोथ नेशंस should look for pragmatic solutions. असल में कॉन्फिडेंस बिल्डिंग मेजर्स हमारा जो उनके साथ एग्रीमेंट था ना, उसी का पार्ट था. वो पहले थोड़ी बातें हो तो जाए, वो तो मैप चेंज करने को दे आर नॉट रेडी ना, दे आर नॉट रेडी टू चेंज. अच्छा एक मिनट, जस्ट पुराना वाला जो पॉइंट था ना, वो मैंने क्या लिखवा रखा था? pragmatic solution to ensure Asian century. जहां wherever we will talk about India and China, you talk about cooperation, because unless India and China cooperate, it cannot be Asian century. Asian century means 21st century belongs to Asia, just like 20th century belonged to West. So Asian century means 21st century belongs to Asia. ठीक है. तो इंडिया चाइना के कोऑपरेशन में कंक्लूड इसी से, यू सिंपली कंक्लूड विद दिस दैट इंडिया एंड चाइना नीड टू कोऑपरेट in order to realize the dream of Asian century. ठीक है, क्योंकि हमारा conclusion has always to be positive, conclusion has to be positive. So bring in that idea of Asian century to realize the dream of Asian century. ठीक है, हाँ, you can mention about it. Buddhism, that is Tibetan culture, but they have also, China has said that birth of Buddha in India was just a historical accident. This is China's statement. He says that that was just an accident. China is the real land of Buddhism. एक ऐसा नेशन जो which is communist, based on the idea of Confucianism, which does not believe in gods and anything. It is talking about Buddhism. So well, China can argue anything. हाँ, यू सी, एक हाँ, ये आपने बहुत अच्छा इंपॉर्टेंट एरिया बताया जो कि मुझे डिस्कस करना पड़ेगा. यू सी, देयर इज अ जनरल अंडरस्टैंडिंग दैट deepening of trade relations will lead to reduction of tensions and nations can go for greater cooperation, and that is why previously we had zero trade with China and we started increasing our trade, we started giving them opening. So this was expected that after China looks at the benefits it gets from trading with India, so there will be a realization that we should go for peaceful resolution of border disputes, and both these nations, they can stay together. But what China has done, that defies this historical understanding. Because just look at European Union. France and Germany, they were at constant war. European Union, they started trade. When we will discuss about European Union, European Coal and Steel Community, that was the beginning of European Union. They started trading because trading states, they do not go for war because they know that trade has got more benefits, and thus they resolve their disputes accordingly. तो चाइना के साथ जो हुआ ना, that defies this understanding of international relations. क्योंकि आप अगर देखते हैं पिछले 5 साल में there has been significant increase in trade with China in last 5 to 7 years. So हो सकता है कि इस तरह का कोई एक स्टेटमेंट आए कि इट डिफाइज दिस हिस्टोरिकल अंडरस्टैंडिंग. तो ये एक फैक्ट है कि हमारे बीच में ट्रेड था, बट स्टिल, और ट्रेड देखिए, इट वाज अराउंड $100 बिलियन ऑफ ट्रेड. चाइना वाज एंजॉयिंग अ $50 बिलियन सरप्लस, लेकिन उसके बावजूद चाइना वेंट फॉर दैट मिस एडवेंचरिज्म. ठीक है. Resolve tariff barrier. हाँ ठीक है सर. There is a considerable limit to which India can go for coercive diplomacy. Thus, India has to rely primarily on soft power diplomacy. Never use terms like coercive diplomacy. We do not believe in coercive diplomacy. I know this must be language from some of the articles that you read in the newspaper, but do not use this term. We do not support coercive diplomacy. Coercive coercion क्या होता है? बस वही डिप्लोमेसी में उसे यूज करना, that is coercive diplomacy. If you do not agree with us, we will put sanctions, we will increase tariff barriers, we will impose export or import restrictions. All this is coercive diplomacy. We do not support coercive diplomacy. Sir, cooperate on technology sharing to develop new research center. क्या मजाक कर रहे हो यार? यूएसए फिर कोऑपरेट करना बंद कर देगा. Because if you are cooperating with China, there is a greater chance that China will go for spying. So that is why on 5G and all, restrictions have been put on Huawei, because we simply do not trust China. The world does not trust China. ठीक है. तो अब देखते हैं हमारे सबसे अच्छे मित्र इंडिया एंड रशिया को. When India got independence, Stalin was there. Stalin's simple argument was either you are with us or you are against us. We are not with Russia, because we said that we are non-aligned, we are not going to favor any bloc. So that was a reason Stalin did not see India favorably. So next came Nikita Khrushchev, and since then the relationship started warming up. And this Nikita Khrushchev, he was born in present Ukraine. So Russia has got a natural affinity towards Ukraine, and during Nikita Khrushchev only, Crimea was given to Ukraine, because Russia had never thought that there will be a day when Ukraine will be separated from Russia. हाँ हाँ, वो जो यूएसएसआर जो था, उसी में ये सारे के सारे रिपब्लिक्स थे. So since then relationship started warming up. We know about 1971. Then come 1990s, Soviet Union imploded. In 1990s, situation was very bad, but still we did support somehow. And in 1990s, Russia tried a lot to go closer to the West. Boris Yeltsin, he tried a lot, but again West did not accept. Mainly US did not accept, because USA did not see Russia as an equal power, and this is among the key grievances of Russia, that US does not respect Russia. It does not see Russia as an equal power. फिर उसके बाद क्या होता है, पुतिन कम्स, और उसके बाद तो इट्स हिस्ट्री. फिर होती हैं कुछ चीजें. अराउंड 1997 Yugoslavia was bombed by NATO. Then 2008 happens, and in Georgia, South Ossetia and Abkhazia, वो बाद में पढ़ेंगे, ठीक है ना. यूक्रेन क्राइसिस पढ़ते समय वो कोल्ड वॉर का पार्ट है, ठीक है. सो वी हैव गॉट स्पेशल एंड प्रिविलेज स्पेसिफिक पार्टनरशिप, special and privileged strategic partnership, and these are some of the areas of cooperation during Cold War. In many of all these plants, Bhilai steel plant, chemical fertilizer plant, heavy engineering, all these were. Even in Bokaro, there is a Russian colony, because BSL Bokaro Steel Limited, that has been established with support of Russia. Anyone from Bokaro? Jharkhand? कोई नहीं है. Then in 1971, we signed Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation, and it assured to protect India, and it did protect India, because when 7th Fleet came to Bay of Bengal, it were Russian nuclear submarines which dated 7th Fleet. And the same 7th Fleet, it was crossing Indian Ocean. वो याद है? Freedom of navigation, crossing from our territorial waters. It was the same 7th Fleet. And it was 50 years of 1971. The strategic partnership signed between two, and then in 2010 it was raised to special and privileged strategic partnership. अब इस term को please remember this term in context of Russia. अच्छा, उधर से कोई है? Yes sir, I am sir from Jharkhand. So this is importance of Russia, permanent member of UNSC, shared vision of multipolar world and key to ensuring a multipolar Asia. This is where we and Russia converge. So when we say that this limitless friendship between Russia and China, this is going to stay for a longer time, this idea challenges, because Russia also does not want a unipolar Asia. It does not want to be a junior partner of China. Okay, and multipolar Asia as well as multipolar world. Second strongest military power, largest energy reserves and producer, defense manufacturing, and it supplies defense platforms without conditionalities. आपने वो आंसर लिखा है? कल आपने जो मुझसे सवाल पूछा था, फिर मैंने कहा था कि आप इसका आंसर लिख कर लो, फिर देखते हैं. बढ़िया है. Then opportunity for investment in energy, diamond, timber sector, etc. You must be knowing that we have given. अरे वो नीचे में पढ़ लेंगे, रहने दो. अब इन्फॉर्मेशन देने का क्या? Political relations, we are membership of various bodies, annual summit, level meetings, and this has been raised to 2+2 level, and this is of recent occurrence. And Quad के केस में what is commonality, that with all three partners of Quad we have got 2+2 level of engagement. Quad के तीनों members के साथ हमारा है 2+2 engagement. And on Kashmir, it has helped us at the UNSC. डिफेंस में कुछ ज्यादा तो है नहीं, वही सब है. Strongest area 70% of our supplies are from Russia without conditionalities. Then it provides state of the art platforms, and these are some of the examples: joint development, license production, state of the art platforms. In case you need to substantiate, these are some of the examples. And then there are government to government deals, so that no delay and very little bureaucratic corruption. But there are a lot many challenges. ये आपको मालूम होना चाहिए, because if we are talking about India USA defense relations versus India Russia defense relations, so these are the challenges, because we know what are the benefits of engaging with Russia: state of the art supplies without conditionalities. But these are very important challenges: delay in timely supply of spares. और अभी हमारे साथ वही दिक्कत भी हो रखी है. यूक्रेन क्राइसिस रशिया को खुद चाहिए, हमारे लिए भी तो चाहिए हमें. We had got roughly spares for around 8 months or so. I think that was in today's newspaper as well. है ना? पढ़ती हैं आप न्यूज़पेपर? अच्छी बात है. आज today's one important article है, वो आपके IGP के लिए, that is important. वो इसके बारे में, that topic is about political parties and defections. वो एक article that is important. Then USA sanctions of Russia. USA sanction लगा देता है, तो it's natural that we cannot get things easily. Then Russia has started supplying weapon platforms to China, so that is naturally a tension for us. And Russia still lags in emerging technologies like UAVs. अभी तक नहीं डाला, but regarding Katsa there is always a threat. This what they were talking about S400, they can say the same about some other platforms as well. So in that case, if we will buy from Russia, they can impose sanctions on us. उन्होंने ये किया था ना, इस 400 के लिए टर्की वेंट फॉर रशिया, उसे बाहर कर दिया था वो F-35 से, F-35 प्रोजेक्ट से टर्की को दे थ्रो आउट. ओके. देन ओवर डिपेंडेंस ऑन वन सप्लायर लिमिट्स स्पेस फॉर मैनूवर. समझ रहे हो आप इसे? अगर हम इफ वी रिमेन डिपेंडेंट ऑन वन सप्लायर, then we have to toe his line. Abhi, suppose we want to take pro-USA line, the threat will always be there that from where the spares for 70% of our defense platforms will come. So इसलिए over dependence should not be there. We need to diversify our imports apart from developing domestic capabilities. FGFA, fifth generation fighter aircraft, for this we had even paid to Russia, but this could not take off because there was some issues with what should be the degree of cooperation, technology transfer and all. India is going for diversification, and this is a challenge for Russia, because India has been the most reliable market for Russian weapons. So if India does not go for procuring Russian weapons, and rather than Russian weapon it procures some weapons from France or USA, naturally this raises questions about the quality and efficacy of Russian platforms in the global market. Naturally a question will be there that why India is not buying, and if India is not buying, why should I buy? So this has been an area of concern for Russia, that earlier you were buying, now you are not buying. जैसे कि अभी देखिए हमने we got this one Rafale. Sukhoi 35 was also in contention, so naturally there will be doubts about efficacy of Sukhoi 35. And Ukraine crisis has shown the limitations of Russian weapon platforms and the superiority of Western. तो ये एक इम्पॉर्टेंट लेसन है फ्रॉम यूक्रेन क्राइसिस। वो सामने का सामने है ना, कितने सारे उनके कितने सारे चॉपर्स वगैरह जो गए हैं, कई सारे उनके कई सारे वेपन्स, टैंक्स हो गए, चॉपर्स हो गए। इसके लिए एग्जांपल्स की असल में जरूरत भी नहीं है, हर जगह एग्जाम्पल की जरूरत नहीं होती। आपने 2-3 पॉइंट में सब्सटेंशिएट कर दिया, काफी है, क्योंकि वी आल्सो हैव टू टेक केयर ऑफ टाइम। हम एग्जाम्पल सोचने में लग गए, अगर समय बर्बाद हो गया तो अभी कितने 2 महीने बाकी हैं पेपर में। सो आप लोग को अभी से क्या करना है, यू हैव टू क्लियरली मेक अ स्ट्रेटेजी कि पहले घंटे में कितने क्वेश्चन लिखे जाने चाहिए, सेकंड घंटे में कितने और तीसरे घंटे में कितने। ये बिल्कुल क्लियर हो लो, जीएस में और ऑप्शनल के लिए भी। जीएस में ठीक है 10 नंबर के 10 हैं और 15 नंबर के 10 हैं, तो ठीक है, स्टार्ट कहाँ से करना है, क्या मैं क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 से स्टार्ट करूं, क्वेश्चन नंबर 11 से स्टार्ट करूं, और पहले घंटे में हाउ मेनी क्वेश्चंस, अगर मैं इफ आई एम ट्राइंग क्वेश्चन राइटिंग 15 मार्कर्स फर्स्ट, हाउ मेनी क्वेश्चंस, ठीक है, कम से कम 6 क्वेश्चन, 6 इधर हो जाएगा, 6 हो गया तो बाकी बचा 4 और उधर से 8 क्वेश्चन होने चाहिए। 10 मार्कर्स 8 क्वेश्चन करो एक घंटे में और कम से कम 15 मार्कर्स 6 क्वेश्चन। ये सारी चीजें क्लियरली स्ट्रेटेजाइज कर लो, नहीं तो बिलीव मी वहां पे दिक्कत होनी है। अभी स्ट्रेटेजाइज आपको अभी से ही करना है। Bilateral trade $13 billion. Target is to take it by 2025 to $30 billion. ये हमेशा रहा, पहले 2020 तक था $30 billion का डॉलर, $30 billion target was till 2020. Now it has been extended to 2025. But in case of investment, we have already reached the target of $30 billion. So we have increased $50 billion. That acquisition of SR oil refinery, so वो एक that helped us in reaching the target. So these are some of the items of import and export, and yes, this is what I was talking about at that time. $1 billion line of credit for development of Russia's forest. Russia's forest मतलब Siberia, or and the point Siberia regarding Russia has got some very serious concerns, because China also has eye on that region, and China has got very little population. Sorry, Russia has got very little population in that region. That area is rich in timber, diamonds, even coal. So if China goes for investment in that region, it may so happen that tomorrow China will be in a better position to occupy that region. So that is why Russia is more interested that it should be India who should be investing in that region. India has got some money, we have got surplus manpower, and regarding diamond, we have got very huge dependency on Russia for rough diamonds. You must have read the report that in Surat 90% there is a loss of business of roughly around 90% because of reduction in diamond import from Russia. And then we are also developing that Vladivostok Chennai maritime route. So one route from this side and another from INSTC. International North-South Transport Corridor. In economic dimension, these are some of the challenges. Again, US sanctions. In whichever sector you try to do trade with Russia, US sanctions will always be a challenge. Geographical distance and absence of connectivity linkages. We are trying to do that through this Chennai Vladivostok corridor as well as INSTC. Law and order issues, poor contract enforcement and delay on the part of India. क्योंकि अगर कोई दिक्कत होती भी है, if you take the matter to the court, ultimately they will give the decision in favor of Russian entity. So that is another factor why people do not invest in Russia. Absence of FTA, there is no FTA with Russia or any bilateral investment treaty, and there are talks about signing a BIT. And economy mainly dominated by government sector, and there is delay in operationalization of INSTC. INSTC we will be discussing later on. In energy, this is a very significant area of cooperation. OVL, that is ONGC Videsh Limited, it has got stakes in Sakhalin 1, and we are also exploring Arctic for gas reserves. And post-Ukraine crisis, Russia has become the second largest crude importer for India, and we are also looking at importing coal. Nuclear cooperation, this is among the key areas of cooperation. At a time when West put sanctions on us, Russia did not, and Russia continued to cooperate with us. Success of Kudankulam, because we signed that 123 agreement with USA. Even after that, no nuclear plant of either USA or France has been set up in India, but USA has set up plants. And there is also talk about cooperation in third nation, building nuclear power plant in Rupur. These are some of the connectivity initiatives, both I told right now. हाँ, right. Cooperation in space sector. आप बिल्कुल उसकी बात कर सकते हैं. Because they were supposed to train our pilots for Gaganyaan project. And Rakesh Sharma, he also went on a Russian rocket. Convergence, mutual trust, ये तो पहले का है ही. Economic complementarities, we are energy starved. Russia is among the biggest energy producer. There is demand for timber, demand for diamond in India, and Russia is among the key producers. So there are economic complementarities. Energy security and strong defense relationship. India's eagerness to invest in Far East, exploration of Arctic, and Russia's need for investment. Then stabilizing Afghanistan and tackling terrorism in the region. And then investing in third country. देखो एक ही पॉइंट 4 जगह आ गया. आपको भी वही काम करना है वहां पे, क्योंकि क्वेश्चन एक ही रहना है ना. Then there are multiple challenges too. क्या चैलेंज है? Relationship mainly dominated by energy and defense trade. There is lack of diversification in trade relations. Russia's adventurism puts India's diplomatic engagement in a tight spot. आप समझ रहे हो ना मैं क्या कहना? हाँ, सिर्फ यूक्रेन ही नहीं है, इससे पहले जहां भी क्राइमिया के केस में भी, because you will always need to justify your stance, and this has never been India's stance. We do not want any intervention by one country in another country. We support rule of law, strengthening of multilateralism, United Nations. So that is why this puts us in a diplomatic tight spot that how to defend this. अभी आपको पता है ये यूक्रेन पर क्या हो रखा है. Then sanctions and deepening of Sino-Russian relationship. Sino चाइना के लिए यूज होता है. India getting closer to West and Russia is flirting with Pakistan. वो इनके बीच में कोऑपरेशन हुआ. Then they said that we are ready to sell weapons to Pakistan, but बाद में रशिया said कि नहीं, that is just for counter terrorism. मिलिट्री एक्सरसाइज, हाँ, लेकिन वो उन्होंने वही कहा कि that was just for counter terrorism purpose. Okay. So the question is asking is that the roots of Ukraine crisis is in the West, and he is talking about expansion of NATO, and that is why this happened. So yes, there can be a question, and whether it is written or not, because yes, it is a question that I had formulated, that emergence of Ukraine, ongoing Ukraine crisis lies in the Cold War, or it has got its roots in the Cold War. So perhaps indirectly they can put it like that, because directly they will not link it with NATO. So you'll have to explain this whole thing. आप ये वाला देखो, यूक्रेन क्राइसिस का रीड आउट, उसके लास्ट में आर देयर फ्यू क्वेश्चंस, है ना, उसमें शायद ये वाला होगा, रूट्स आर इन द कोल्ड वॉर करके. थर्ड क्वेश्चन इट इज, ठीक है, हम उसे उसी समय हैंडल करेंगे. ओके, कुछ चीजें मैं भी प्रीएम्प्ट कर सकता हूं. ठीक है. सातवां, डिफरेंसेस ओवर इंडो पैसिफिक. They have not accepted Indo-Pacific. They continue to stick with Asia-Pacific, and they have told Chinese line over this. So that naturally, and we have tried to explain it to them. And there are differences over Ukraine crisis. Okay. In that, थक गए, चलिए ठीक है. प्रिसाइजली 10 मिनट चाय पीने जाते हो, आप लोग भूल जाते हो. दैट मस्ट नॉट हैपन. 7:35 अगर आप नहीं भी रहोगे, आई विल सिंपली स्टार्ट द क्लास. फिर डोंट पुट द ब्लेम ऑन मी, मैं साफ कह दे रहा हूं. ओके, 10 मिनट ब्रेक. हाँ, किम्बरली बेस्ट क्वालिटी डायमंड, जॉन्सबर्ग गोल्ड माइन इन साउथ अफ्रीका, चाइना वांट्स टू एक्सप्लोर. यार ठीक है, बट रशिया से काफी सारे रफ डायमंड्स आते हैं. आप न्यूज में इसे चेक कर, यू जस्ट चेक दिस इन द न्यूज, that how much impact it has made on Surat because of ongoing crisis and the loss of jobs in Surat. So between India and Russia, future of the relationship, how we should go around so that relationship could be improved. And recently there are multiple steps that have been taken. We have tried to deepen trade, alternate trade routes, and we are continuing to purchase from Russia despite Western pressure, and Russia has recognized this. Because if you remember, India was the first state that Putin has visited apart from that G20 summit. So this shows that importance that Putin gives to India. And actually there was also discussion that Putin, Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov, he was not able to handle the relationship well, because he was continuously keeping the same Chinese line on Indo-Pacific, on Quad and all. So that is why perhaps it was Putin who took charge of the relationship, and there has been a significant development in the relationship. So India going for neutrality, this has re-energized the relationship because there was a dip in the relationship, because we were getting closer to USA. Russia's dependence on China was continuously increasing since annexation of Crimea. It was also getting closer to Pakistan. Russian foreign minister, he had visited Pakistan. So due to this, there was a dip in the relationship. But after Ukraine crisis, the position that India took, because going forward we will discuss that there has been an evolution in India's position with respect to Ukraine. Initially, the term used by India was special military operation, which was the same line that Russia was taking. But later on, what happened in Busha, then we started talking about territorial integrity, and also there was a shift in our relationship, shift in our position, so that we will discuss later on. And why this mistrust was emerging? Because of Quad, Indo-Pacific and deepening engagements between USA and the West. So challenges to India and USA relationship, India and Russia relationship, all these factors we have already seen them. So what is it that we need to do? We means India as well as Russia. Need for Russia to curb its adventurism and mend its relationship with the West. क्योंकि अगर भैया तुम वेस्ट के साथ पंगे नहीं लोगे तो we also have got good relationship with West, you also have good relationship with West, naturally everyone will be happy, and ultimate purpose will be only to tackle China. Because you see, Europe wants to have good relationship with Russia, because it also knows that, because there is economic complementarity we saw with respect to energy, and if Russia and Europe come together, Europe economic power, Russia military power, so naturally global position of USA will be under threat. So that is among the key reason why US would never want that Europe should go closer to Russia. That is how ये सारी की सारी चीजें चलती हैं. Then ये एक टर्म है strategic compulsion. Russia is going closer to China because it has a compulsion. It needs new markets. And we are going closer to USA and the West because that is because of our needs. So there is a need for both India and Russia to understand each other's strategic compulsions rather than having doubts about each other's intentions. Okay? Then deepen economic engagement by signing FTA and BIT. There are talks presently because all those Western supermarkets and chains, they have shifted out of Russia. So Russia is not talking to India if Indian all these food chains and other markets, if they can take place of all those Western chains, because if products are not there in the Russian market, ultimately it is common people of Russia who will have to face the brunt of inflation. So that is not preferable for the stability of the government. So it would always want that whatever void has been created by the Western bloc, that should be filled by some favorable nation. and that will deepen India-Russia engagement, and there is a chance for weaken the bond that is between China and Russia. ठीक है, इस चीज को आप समझ रहे हो? Operationalization of connectivity projects like INSTC, and recently we did see that 2 containers they have been sent through INSTC. और एक और है इंडियाज मेंबरशिप ऑफ EU या फिर इसके साथ FTA, हाँ, एंड कंक्लूडिंग EU FTA एट द अर्लीस्ट, यूरेशियन इकोनॉमिक यूनियन, उसके बारे में आई थिंक नीचे लिखा हुआ है। ये दिस इज अ इकोनॉमिक ब्लॉक क्रिएटेड बाय रशिया. Russia is there, Belarus is there, Kazakhstan is there, Armenia is there. So alternate to European Union, it is trying to create some alternate market. वो है नीचे, आप उसमें देखिए, आप अपने नोट्स में पलट कर देखिए तो सही, थोड़ा तो पलट कर देख लिया करो यार. This is also called as pivot to Asia or pivot to the east. Or and we are not talking about US policy, but this is Russian policy. Because when Russia saw that because of annexation of Crimea, multiple sanctions have been put by the West. So Russia realized that dependence on the Western market is not a very prudent strategy. So it tried to shift towards east, towards the Asian market. There is China, there is India, these are big markets. So that this specific policy talks about that only. Balance Russia's economic interest by deepening its engagement with Asia and reducing dependence on the West, and tackle the challenges that have emerged after sanctions imposed post, यार बहुत ज्यादा आफ्टर हो गए, तो आप इसे पोस्ट कर सकते हो, पोस्ट क्राइमिया क्राइसिस. ठीक है. And within Russia, this is a very recent news. There have been call for trade and investment ties with India, China, and South Asian countries via Black Sea and Mediterranean Sea to Africa, via Caspian and Iran to India, and from Russia's Far East to South Asia. इतना ज्यादा याद करने की जरूरत नहीं है, सिर्फ you only need to remember the first line. Call for developing new trade and investment ties with China, India, and other South Asian nations. क्यों? Because these are developing nations, there is demand for products. And this is Eastern Economic Forum for development of Russia's Far East, mainly Vladivostok. And we have committed $1 billion that we have already seen. ठीक है? To support economic development of Russia's Far East and expand international cooperation in the Asia Pacific region. So you see, Eastern Economic Forum, there can be a convergence with Indo-Pacific. Because ultimately Indo-Pacific also talks about that specific geography. Act East also talks about that specific geography. And Eastern Economic Forum is also focused towards Asia's Far East. So there can this provides for new area of convergence. So on Indo-Pacific, rather than divergence, both need to talk to each other, look at each other point of view, and that would create area of convergence between Indo-Pacific, Act East and Eastern Economic Forum. ठीक है, अगर सवाल आता है इंडो पैसिफिक पर कि there is divergence, fact is there is divergence, what should be the solution and how we can look forward to. So look forward, this has to be that Russia is also trying to develop its Far East through Eastern Economic Forum. India has also gone for strategic engagement through Act East policy and through its Indo-Pacific strategy. So naturally this creates a convergence. So both nations need to engage with each other for mutual cooperation and development. So whatever you want to read about INSTC, you can read here. Zoom ज़्यादा हो रखा है, ऐसे नॉर्मली 40 दिन लगते थे दिस रूट, यहाँ से रफली 20 से 22 दिन. उसके आगे की दिक्कत क्या है? थ्रू दिस रीजन देयर आर मल्टीपल चोक पॉइंट्स. अभी हाल में हमने देखा था स्वेज में क्या हुआ था, राइट? यहाँ पे नो सच चैलेंजेस. Plus through this we can directly reach to not only Russia but also to Eastern Europe. Central Asia, we will link this with Ashgabat Agreement and there are talks about linking the two. And Iran foreign minister, he was there in India and he talked about that you link INSTC with Chabahar. ये ऐसे बंदर अब्बास से निकलता है, अब देख रहे हो ना बंदर अब्बास, ये ज्यादा क्लोजर है टुवर्ड्स. एक मिनट. Why Europe will go with Russia as Europe is also having military capability. History reminds every country. विकास रंजन सर. ओके, पहले इनका पॉइंट देख लेते हैं, ठीक है ना. I am not contradicting Vikas Ranjan sir. He has got his own point of view, his own understanding. But at the same time, there is an understanding in international relations that by creating economic interdependencies, relationships can be improved and strengthened. And Russia and Europe have got economic complementarities. Even after Russia had annexed Crimea or in the initial days of Ukraine crisis, was Europe willing to put sanctions on Russia? The answer is no. Was it supplying offensive weapons to Ukraine? Germany had supplied helmets. So just look at this. If there cannot be, then why all this was happening? Because ultimately it is only through trade that they know that they can ensure good relations, good neighborly relations with Russia. History, it is a fact that history, what is that term? History reminds every country. Then I have got a simple question. What about Germany and France? What about USA and Japan? I am not asking you to ask this question to anyone, but I was just responding to you. ठीक है? Now let us come to INSTC. मैं जो कह रहा था आप लोग सब समझ रहे थे ना? बस. अजरबैजान, यार आस्त्रखान, ये रशिया का ही रीजन है ना? वो हाँ रशिया का ही एक पोर्ट है. वहां पे नहीं दिख रहा है क्या? मॉस्को, आस्त्रखान, सेंट पीटर्सबर्ग, दिस इज ब्लैक सी, बंदर अब्बास, ईरान, इंडिया, मुंबई. अरे वो लैंड रूट है। नहीं नहीं नहीं, अर्मेनिया साइड में है, अजरबैजान से सीधे का सीधा ही निकलता है ना, अर्मेनिया दूसरी तरफ है। हाँ 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 हाँ। ये तो फिर भी ये इसके बाउंड्री पर, ये कैस्पियन सी का बाउंड्री इसके अजरबैजान के साथ टच करता है ना, तो वो दिखा रहा था। अभी जो कार्गो आया है, द कार्गो दैट हैज कम वेरी रिसेंटली, इट इज थ्रू कैस्पियन सी, so that you do not need, because even Azerbaijan, it is closer to Turkey, though it would not go against Russia, but there are always challenges, so it's better to avoid land routes if you have got waterways. But in case trade is there, so okay, if the goods are coming, goods can always be sent to Azerbaijan through this route, or from India to Azerbaijan. वो वैसे भी नहीं होना था। वैसे अर्मेनिया इज क्लोजर टू रशिया, and Russia has given security guarantees to Armenia. देना था, वो जो नोगार्नो काराबाख issue you're talking about, but Russia said that no, if the attack is on your territory, then we will be supplying. वो complicated issue था, but since that is issue of the past, अभी नहीं डिस्कस कर रहे। नोगार्नो काराबाख इंटरनेशनल नॉर्थ साउथ ट्रांसपोर्ट कॉरिडोर, अब इसमें समझने का कुछ है? चीजें सीधी सीधी हैं। Route is 30% cheaper and 40% shorter. एंड इट ऑल्सो, ये सारे के सारे पॉजिटिव्स ऑफ INSTC है। अगला क्या है? इट ऑल्सो प्रोवाइड्स एन ऑल्टरनेटिव कनेक्टिविटी इनिशिएटिव टू कंट्रीज इन द यूरेशियन रीजन, सेंट्रल एशिया एज वेल एज ईस्टर्न यूरोप। सेकंड, एक्सेस रिसोर्स रिच सेंट्रल एशिया एंड इट्स मार्केट्स, वो तो ठीक है ही। अस्काबाट एग्रीमेंट, थ्रू चाबहार वी आर रीचिंग Central Asia, and this would be second route. और इसमें INSTC के रिगार्डिंग कैन देयर बी एनीथिंग एल्स? चैलेंजेस वही है, देयर इज डिले, देयर कैन बी सैंक्शंस पुट ऑन ईरान एंड रशिया, ठीक है। उसके आगे क्या है? बोथ ईरान एंड रशिया दे आर पार्ट ऑफ BRI, वो चैलेंजेस इस तरीके से होता है कि आप किसे प्रेफरेंस दे रहे हो। ये एक हो सकता है कि विच रूट यू आर प्रेफरिंग, or it can be that somewhere, suppose some is there, if there is any crossing or not. I don't think there is any crossing. If, so we have almost bypassed Central Asia. Central Asia is towards the east. Central Asia जो कैस्पियंस के ईस्ट में है ना, इतने में नहीं जाने, वो इंटरव्यू के लिए जब डिस्कशन होगा उस समय पढ़ लेंगे। यूरेशियन इकोनॉमिक यूनियन, याद है वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट हैविंग FTA with Eurasian Economic Union. ये काफी रिसेंट है 2014 एंड कंट्रीज आर रशिया, बेलारूस, कजाकिस्तान, आर्मेनिया एंड किर्गिस्तान. फ्री मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स and it is seen as an attempt by Russia to consolidate Russian hegemony and a countermeasure against isolation by USA and EU. Because just look at the dates, same ही है ना. So Russia it tried to create some alternate mechanism and it will help India, Russia in strengthening their economic ties, tap Central Asian markets and reduce Russia's dependence on China. तो ये 3 पॉइंट्स हो गए, ठीक है, लिखा हुआ एक साथ है, but these are 3 separate points. First, strengthen economic relationship. Second, reduce dependence on China. And third, tap the Central Asian markets because they are resource rich and there are demands for Indian goods. हम देखेंगे, we will be reading. क्या है सर, ये ट्रांसपोर्टेशन रूट एक बार एक्सप्लेन कर दो, somewhat details if possible. Details about what? INSTC. You see, all the details of INSTC, they are simply mentioned here. You can just go through it and you can simply read it. Signed in 2000 and the shortest, and it is a multimodal route. Indian Ocean, Persian Gulf, Caspian Sea via Iran up to St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg मतलब Russia. And from St. Petersburg, Northern Europe is within easy reach via Russian Federation. You can talk about Northern Europe as well as Eastern Europe. क्योंकि अब सीधे का सीधा when you will look at the map, you can simply understand that what we are talking about. These are some of the key areas that it shall be crossing, and this shows the benefits. Normally it takes around 40 days. So 16 to 21 days, 30% cheaper and 40% shorter. And it will cut down the time and cost. And जब time and cost cut हो जाता है, so naturally business becomes more affordable. So this will increase investment, mutual trade. हाँ हाँ, yes, you can talk about that this is a all weather route. क्योंकि वो वाला ठंड में फ्रीज हो जाता है ना, वो वाला व्लादिवोस्टॉक वाला, इट्स नेचुरल, वो फ्रीज हो जाता है. मोर कन्वीनियंट रूट. इसमें वही है, 3 पॉइंट्स हो गया. एंड दे हैव क्रिएटेड अ जॉइंट स्टडी ग्रुप टू डिस्कस अबाउट दिस. हाँ हाँ, कि व्हाट कैन बी, दे हैव क्रिएटेड दिस अल्टरनेट रूपी रूबल ट्रेड. हाँ बिल्कुल सही है, राइट पॉइंट. क्योंकि पहले भी हमारा यही ट्रेड चल रहा था, कोल्ड वॉर एरा में रूपी रूबल ट्रेड था. अब आते हैं मच अवेटेड रशिया चाइना रिलेशनशिप. इनिशियली दोनों का रिश्ता बहुत अच्छा था, फिर बुरा हुआ. चाइना वेंट क्लोजर टू रशिया, सॉरी यूएसए. उसके बाद में देखिए क्या हुआ आफ्टर ये एनेक्सेशन ऑफ क्राइमिया. वेस्टर्न सैंक्शंस ऑन रशिया हैव ब्रॉट रशिया एंड चाइना टुगेदर. क्योंकि इवन टिल नाउ इन वेपन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एंड वेपन टेक्नोलॉजी रशिया रिमेन्स अ लीडर. चाइना सब कुछ भी बना लेता है, चाइना अब तक सही तरीके का इंजन भी नहीं बना पाया है. उस I mean whatever JF-17 and other fighters are there, they all of them have Russian engines. Because all these technologies, they take time in maturing. So that is why Russia always wanted to have good relationship with China, because of all the state of the art platforms. It has also exported S-400 missile. The good thing is that it had exported one battery of this S-400, and after that, there, due to some factors, it has stopped for the time. It has delayed export to China, but it has said that we will continue to supply to India and we will complete the supplies within given time. Sukhoi 35 missile naval assets to China. China was the second largest customer for Indian armaments. This is international diplomacy. India biggest customer, China second largest customer, और दोनों को दोनों लड़ रहे हैं. तो ये होती है इंटरनेशनल डिप्लोमेसी. नेक्स्ट, 30-year gas deal via new pipeline since annexation of Crimea. Bilateral trade has increased by 50% and biggest destination for Russian exports, and bilateral trade has crossed $150 billion. और हम कहाँ पे हैं? हमने टारगेट रख रखा है कि हम 30 पहुंचेंगे by 2025. Roughly it's around $13 billion. And yes, during on Ukraine crisis, China has been at the forefront of supporting Russia, and it has also criticized West for imposing sanctions. And at the UNGA meet to suspend Russia from UNHRC, we abstained, but China voted in favor of Russia. From the UNSC meetings, both of us were abstaining. Military exercises, naval drills on Indo-Pacific and Quad. Russia has taken the Chinese line and it continues to support the idea of Asia Pacific. ये हमने already देख रखा है. और complementary में देखिए, USA as a common challenge, right? So suppose USA stops being a common challenge to both China and Russia. Suppose either China develops good relationship with USA or Russia develops good relationship with USA. What will be the outcome? Naturally, the partnership will weaken. So that is why Russia-China partnership cannot be termed strategic. This partnership is because of some external compulsions rather than some inherent complementarities. Between India and Russia, there is no conflict. Between China and Russia, there are conflicts. So that is why it's but natural that India and Russia make natural partners rather than China and Russia. This is a coalition of compulsion. Similar type of government and leadership, economic complementarities, and both have agreed to link up Eurasian Economic Union and Belt and Road Initiative. Then there are some of the contradictions as well, जैसे कि Chinese worldview and Russia's unwillingness to be a junior partner, historical animosity, in I think late 1960s दोनों के बीच में कन्फ्लिक्ट हुए हैं, बॉर्डर कन्फ्लिक्ट इन द ईस्टर्न, रशिया का जो फॉरेस्ट रीजन है ना, उस रीजन में नहीं, वो दैट फॉर द टाइम बीइंग उन्होंने क्लियर किया था एंड फॉर द टाइम बीइंग वो सेटल हुआ भी था, बट रशिया हैज गॉट कंसर्न्स एंड दैट इज व्हाई. आप खुद बताओ, इन द ईस्टर्न रीजन, साइबेरिया साइड में, चाइना शुड हैव बीन मोस्ट वेलकम्ड, राइट? because China has got money, China has got all that capacity to develop, and it has got geographical connectivity. But rather than China, Russia is more interested that Japan should invest, India should invest. So this shows that there is underlying skepticism, because हम एक चीज भूल रहे हैं, रशिया एक पास्ट का सुपर पावर रहा है. So there is no way it would be willing to be a junior partner. But if Russia and China come together, it is Russia who will have to be a junior partner. देखिए आइडियोलॉजिकल डिफरेंस नॉट एज सच, दोनों ऑलमोस्ट टोटलिटेरियन रेजिम्स हैं. हाँ, वो कौन सा मॉडल होना चाहिए कम्युनिज्म का, मेरा कम्युनिज्म सही या तुम्हारा कम्युनिज्म सही. यार पॉइंट इज, यू सी, फ्रॉम माओ चाइना हैज मूव्ड अ लॉन्ग path. From Mao to Deng Xiaoping, you can just look at the shift. So that is why China presently does not argue that we are the leader of communist world. They are not talking. China even says that it is a democracy. Have you not read it recently? Yes. So it is not ready to claim that it is a communist nation. It says that we are a democracy, largest democracy in the world. हाँ, वहां 99% वोटिंग होती है नॉर्थ कोरिया में, आपको पता है? आप कभी देखना 97% 98% वोटिंग होती है. वही ना, ROC एंड DPR के हाँ DPR के. हाँ, तो उसके बाद अगला देखिए, China is concerned about increasing Chinese influence in Central Asia, and that is among the key reasons why Russia wanted India to be in SCO. क्योंकि वहां क्या है, डिफेंस सिक्योरिटी. who will look at the security? Russia. Who will look at the economy? China. And even Central Asian republics, they want to come out of this duopoly. And the relationship is mainly dependent on external factors. The day external factors change, relationship may change. And regarding this only, let me give you an interesting piece of information. China was buying Iranian oil, right? And Iran had got tensions with the West. But when JCPOA was signed and on Iran the sanctions were lifted, rather than moving towards Chinese market, Iran looked towards Western markets. So because they know that in those markets purchasing power capacity is much more. Plus, if you are dependent on China, you are always at threat because of weaponization of trade. So everyone wants that partnership should be diversified. Next comes, what should be India's approach? We should remain engaged with Russia with free and frank communication over each other's strategic imperatives. ठीक है? फिर इकोनॉमिक डायमेंशन को डीपन करो and achieve the target of $30 billion of bilateral trade and diversify the relationship through FTA and BIT. ये कुछ भी नया नहीं है, वही सब है जो ऊपर में लिखा हुआ है. Strengthening domestic capabilities to emerge as alternative to China for Russia. And completing connectivity initiatives, and continue to maintain strategic autonomy while going for issue based alliance आप लिख सकते हो या पार्टनरशिप। आप इसे या तो अलायंस लिखो या फिर राइट इट पार्टनरशिप। क्या लिखा है सर? रशिया कभी भी जूनियर नहीं बनना चाहेगा, राइट। एंड यही रीजन है कि रशिया और चाइना के पार्टनरशिप को वी कैन नॉट से एज स्ट्रेटेजिक या फिर नो लिमिट्स पार्टनरशिप, जो भी कहिए, वो फॉर द टाइम बीइंग है, दैट इज ओनली फॉर द टाइम बीइंग। रशिया पर और कोई सवाल? क्योंकि यूक्रेन क्राइसिस हम कल पढ़ेंगे, ठीक है। वे फॉरवर्ड यहां बता तो दिया यार। अब मुझे क्या, मुझे ऊपर में वे फॉरवर्ड लिखना चाहिए था? ये वे फॉरवर्ड ही तो है। Right. So his question is that Russia, China, US wants to compete with China, so why is it behind Russia? हाँ, then why is it? हाँ, the Russia anyway is a declining power. This is the question many of the US strategic thinkers keep questioning, and that is why they were praising Donald Trump, that Trump is doing the right thing. That if USA eases sanctions for Russia, then naturally the bond between China and Russia will get weakened. But the point is that mainly this Democratic Party in USA, it is still living in that Cold War era. That is point number one, that hangover. Second is that if USA starts supporting Russia and if Europe and Russia come together, that will be a challenge for USA, because one is economic power, one is military power. Third, US cannot go all out against China because of its economic investments, but US always searches for enemies. So Russia is that enemy. सर्च करता है, ढूंढता है दुश्मन, क्योंकि वो उसे कुछ तो करने को चाहिए ना। हिस्ट्री का एक टाइम बताओ जब यूएस वॉर में नहीं था। पहले तुम फंसे हुए हो वियतनाम में, वो खत्म हुआ तुम घुस गए गल्फ में, वो खत्म हुआ तुम घुस गए साउथ एशिया में, और उसके बाद तो भैया साउथ एशिया में इतने समय रहे दिन इराक वॉज देयर, लीबिया वॉज देयर। Donald Trump is the only president who did not start any new war. मजाक नहीं, this is a fact. But Obama gets Nobel Peace Prize, और वो भी यूएस प्रेसिडेंट बनने के शायद 4 या 6 महीने के अंदर में। पता नहीं 4-6 महीने में उसने ऐसा क्या कर लिया था। जेसीपीओए बहुत लेट में आया है मैडम, उसे 2009 में मिला है नोबेल प्राइज। You just look at the date, you will be astonished. These things are not discussed because again forbidden knowledge. You cannot question Obama. You will have to search for what are his diplomatic achievements. JCPOA is one. Next, फर्स्ट टेन्योर में उसने 1 लाख तक फौज बढ़ा दी अफगानिस्तान में, एंड सेकंड टेन्योर में व्हाट वाज हिज प्रॉमिस? आई विल ब्रिंग माय फोर्सेस बैक। That is politics. Just look at things. You will really be astonished. These things are seriously not discussed. उनसे जाकर पूछो, नोबेल वालों से। ऐसे कई को उन्होंने दे रखा है नोबेल प्राइज, इथियोपिया वाले को, और आन सांग सूची, देयर वर क्वेश्चंस अबाउट हर एज वेल। and leave everything aside sir, what are the major topics left in? अभी बहुत कुछ बचा हुआ है. The topics left are Ukraine crisis, tomorrow, then India European Union, India Europe relations, India ASEAN relations, India Central Asia relations, India Africa relations, India Latin America relations, India West Asia relations. ये सारे जल्दी जल्दी करेंगे, because you see I do not know from which segment questions might come. ठीक है ना? So that is why I want to make you people ready for everything. यार क्वेश्चन बनाने, एक मिनट, जब टेस्ट सीरीज मैं कंडक्ट लॉन्च करूंगा ना, देन आई विल सीरियसली आस्क यू टू मेक क्वेश्चंस. देयर यू विल हैव एनफ अपॉर्चुनिटी टू आस्क ऑल दीज क्वेश्चंस एंड बॉदर ऑल दिस पीपल. नॉर्डिक के साथ, हाँ चलो उसे इंडिया यूरोप में के साथ वी विल कवर इट. और हाँ चलिए ठीक है, ये क्वेश्चंस, देयर आर सम क्वेश्चंस एक्चुअली, और वैसे टाइम भी हो गया है. क्या करना है क्वेश्चंस का? हाँ भाई मेंस वालों से पूछने दो, क्या करना है? लिख के लाना है, या भी डिस्कस करना है, कल डिस्कस करना है, क्या करना है? या फिर ऐसा है कि इसमें जो मुश्किल वाला है बस वो डिस्कस कर दो, क्योंकि नीदर दिस वन नॉर द इंडिया चाइना रिलेशंस वी हैव नॉट डिस्कस दोज क्वेश्चंस एज वेल, क्योंकि ये सब पढ़ाने से ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है डिस्कसिंग क्वेश्चंस. बताइए कौन सा? ओके मैं यूक्रेन वाला नहीं, मैं रशिया की बात कर रहा हूँ. कौन सा वाला? सेकंड वाला. और हम वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड दिस पढ़ते समय, वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड, याद है? एक्टिस्ट, इंडो पैसिफिक, फिर उसके बाद वो क्या था? हाँ ईस्टर्न इकोनॉमिक फोरम. वी हैव ऑलरेडी, यू सी what does the question say? Despite Russia's reservations, first we will discuss this part. Russia has got reservation about Indo-Pacific. ठीक है? Okay. Cooperation between India and Russia in the Indo-Pacific region can be a win-win partnership. Okay. So what will be the introduction? नहीं लिखो मत, सिर्फ बताओ, मतलब बोलना नहीं है. जो भी मैंने आपको बताया है आंसर लिखने के बारे में, वॉट एवर आई हैव टोल्ड यू, लुक एट दैट एंड से दैट व्हाट इज इट दैट यू विल डिस्कस इन द इंट्रोडक्शन. कोई और? कोई और? Rather, not just profile is rising, what is Indo-Pacific? Keyword is Indo-Pacific. You have to explain the keyword. I said you whatever I have said you how to write an answer, just look at it. Okay, so introduction you will explain Indo-Pacific. Then we will go to this segment. What are Russia's reservations? And then we will discuss about avenues for cooperation as a win-win partnership. Okay, and then key elements of India's Indo-Pacific strategy. खत्म. मुश्किल वाला सवाल इतना आसान था, आप लोग बस नर्वस नहीं. मैंने वो जो हमने डिस्कस किया ना, वो सारी की सारी जो चीजें हैं, उसके जो ट्रेड कॉम्प्लीमेंटैरिटीज डेवलप करना है, या फिर रशिया का क्या है, ईस्टर्न इकोनॉमिक फोरम है इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए, इंडिया का एक्ट है स्ट्रेटेजिक कंपोनेंट। पॉइंट फॉर्म में ही हम लिखेंगे। अगर आपको डाउट है आप लिखिए, लिख कर लाइए, ठीक है। हो गया। उस वाले को देखना है, रशिया वाले को भी, हाँ हाँ चाइना वाले को भी देखना है। ओके, हाँ बोलिए। क्या? वो इंडो पैसिफिक मैं बताऊंगा, ठीक है ना, उस पॉइंट को भी रोक कर रखिए। हाँ, उससे एड्रेस नहीं हो रहा था ना, इसीलिए मैं कह रहा हूँ उसका जो की एलिमेंट्स है ना, कौन से वाले बुकलेट में वो मुझे याद नहीं है, बट मैंने लिख रखा है किसी एक नोट में ही। शायद वो आसियान वाले में, इंडिया आसियान में होगा, इंडिया साउथ ईस्ट एशिया में होगा, क्योंकि इंडो पैसिफिक उसी का पार्ट बनता है ना, ठीक है। टारगेट मेंस 05 यूक्रेन क्राइसिस, हाँ इंडिया रशिया। ना ना ना, चेन्नई व्लादिवोस्टोक रूट सिर्फ है इंडिया रशिया के ट्रेड के लिए, इट इज ओनली फॉर द ट्रेड पर्पस। यस यस, हाँ हाँ, या देयर इज अ कन्वर्जेंस, हाँ बिकॉज इट इज पार्ट ऑफ इंडो पैसिफिक, so yes this provides scope for cooperation and convergence। हाँ ये वाला था ना, इसमें कौन सा वाला? इसमें वही है, पॉजिटिव चैलेंजेस। असेसमेंट मतलब हमें दोनों चीजें करनी है ना, कि ऐसा ऐसा इसके कारण है, लेकिन इसमें इसमें ये सारी दिक्कतें, दीज आर द इश्यूज, बिकॉज वी हैव टू assess, so when we assess we discuss both aspects, right? हाँ नहीं, कॉमन वही, हाँ नहीं, एक मिनट, व्हाट शुड बी इंडियाज कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन, तो सेकंड पार्ट वाला तो हो रखा है, सेकंड पार्ट वाला तो हो रखा है ना। फर्स्ट पार्ट वाले में क्या रखा रहना है कि चाइना रशिया रिलेशनशिप, दे हैव कम टू, देयर इज अ कन्वर्जेंस एंड नो लिमिट पार्टनरशिप। एक कीवर्ड को हमने, एक स्टेटमेंट को हमने डाल दिया, एज क्लेम्ड बाय इन द जॉइंट स्टेटमेंट बाय बोथ लीडर्स, दे हैव डेवलप्ड अ नो लिमिट पार्टनरशिप, ठीक है। उसके बाद एसेस द फ्यूचर, तो इसमें क्या आता है, सबसे पहले तो हम देखेंगे कन्वर्जेंस क्या क्या है, फिर हम देखेंगे डाइवर्जेंसेस क्या क्या है। तो असेसमेंट पार्ट में क्या देंगे ना, सिंस रशिया वुड नॉट बी विलिंग टू बी अ जूनियर पार्टनर एंड द प्रेजेंट कोऑपरेशन सिम्स टू बी अ रिजल्ट ऑफ एक्सटर्नल एलिमेंट्स, ब्रैकेट में वेस्टर्न सैंक्शंस, तो इट सिम्स टू बी अ, उसके लिए क्या था, सिचुएशन, क्या वो एक टर्म था, हाँ, इट सिम्स टू बी अ पार्टनरशिप ऑफ कंपल्सन, हाँ, रादर देन स्ट्रेटेजी। सिम्स टू बी, इट इज नहीं, इट सिम्स टू बी, ठीक है। उसके बाद व्हाट शुड बी इंडियाज कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन, ठीक है ना। नहीं, क्योंकि यहां पे हम नहीं चाहते कि ये पार्टनरशिप मजबूत हो, वी वांट इट टू बी वीकेंड, so our focus should be that we could, how we can reduce Russia's dependency on China and increase economic engagements with ourselves. ओके और बाकी दोनों क्वेश्चंस ठीक है ना? सेकंड वाला सर प्लीज डिस्कस, अभी डिस्कस करो। यार मैंने वो एक टेलीग्राम के ग्रुप के बारे में बताया है। सो व्हाट यू डू इज दैट, आप या तो आंसर लिखो, लिखकर आप वहां पे डाल दो, या फिर व्हाट यू डू इज दैट इफ यू हैव गॉट स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चंस यू सिंपली पोस्ट देयर, ओके, आई विल आंसर इट, इट विल बी इधर टेक्स्ट और वॉइस, ठीक है? ठीक है फिर खत्म करते हैं, चलिए। हाँ बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, मुझे खत्म करना है यार। आपको पता है आईआर कितना बड़ा पोर्शन है, इन सबको बहुत मुश्किल से कंप्रेस करके जल्दी जल्दी खत्म करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ, क्योंकि ऐसा फिक्स नहीं है ना कि क्वेश्चन सिर्फ इंडिया चाइना रशिया से ही आएगा। पता चला उनका मूड हुआ वो लैटिन अमेरिका से क्वेश्चन डाल दिए, आप ही लोग कहोगे कि यार ये तो पढ़ाया नहीं था। ओके देन, थैंक यू वेरी मच।